Hey guys, tonight we will gently drift into the silken world of the Tudor court, where rosebuds of old wove legends with their beauty and cunning. Light a candle, wrap yourself in the warmest blanket, and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, turn on a gentle fan to hear the whisper of the breeze, and let us surrender ourselves to tonight's soothing journey. And then, amidst the gentle glow of candlelight and the warmth of your blanket, your journey begins. Imagine the winter of 1518. You are Elizabeth Blount, 16 years old, your cheeks flushed like newly opened peach blossoms, and your hair soft and flowing as silk, catching the golden flicker of each candle. In your parents' simple wooden home, mornings begin with prayers for a peaceful day, and afternoons drift by at your embroidery frame as you endlessly contemplate whether to choose blue or green thread, dreaming of which pattern will capture the greatest elegance on the pristine fabric. Everything in your little world seems settled: a suitable marriage to the neighbouring lord's son, laughter-filled children, and the gentle routine of managing a modest household without upheaval. Then, on a frigid morning, the front door bursts open to the thunder of hooves. A royal courier strides into the yard wearing the crimson and gold livery of the court, his horse panting and stamping restlessly from the swift ride. The black leather satchel at his side seems to carry the kingdom's secrets. In the moment your mother breaks the wax seal and unfolds the vellum, the air stills as if the parchment itself has taken a breath. A royal summons. Your mother's eyes widen in astonishment and fear, while your father leans against the doorpost, a small, knowing smile touching his lips. He understands this is fate's great opportunity. The letter, penned in the flowing hand of the king's secretary, invites you to join the Christmas festivities at Greenwich Palace. It is more than an invitation. It is an order that bears the full authority of Henry VIII, the most powerful monarch in Europe. The rest of that day passes in a whirlwind. Your father commands the village tailor to be summoned, and together they cut and sew the costly fabrics your family has long treasured. Your mother frets over every accessory, from the engraved silver ring to the bottle of rosewater imported from France. The scent of velvet and dense oils hangs in the air, reminding you that you are about to enter a world of luxury you had scarcely dared imagine. As dusk falls, you stand before your small dressing table, a gleaming brass mirror, a jar of pale powder, and soft cotton swabs. In the hush, only the quiet rustle of falling snow outside and the rapid beating of your heart can be heard. You know you are stepping into a real fairy tale. From the simple country girl at her embroidery frame to honoured guest of the court, walking beneath gilded arches to the soft strains of a distant harpsichord. Over the next 3 days, the mounted escort carries you through silent villages, winter grasses swaying in the chill breeze. Children pause their play to catch the echo of hooves drifting through the mist. Each mile marks a transformation, from the familiar wooden threshold of your home to the great gate of Westminster, where banners bearing the royal arms flutter on high, announcing that destiny has claimed you. When darkness finally settles over Greenwich, you stand before the soaring palace gates, the Thames' icy breath lingering on dew-covered grass. Your small hand trembles as you grasp the copper-clad key. This single turn will usher you into the heart of power, where every gaze will follow you, and whispers and regal eyes will place unprecedented questions and expectations upon your shoulders. In that instant, you realize your life is no longer the peaceful stretch of embroidery and prayer. It is the opening act of a magnificent new chapter, where beauty, strategy, and a courageous heart will together weave a legend. The village tailors, once accustomed to humble cloth and simple thread, were now summoned to a vast work tent framed by tall wooden fences. Lanterns swung overhead, casting dancing shadows across bolts of velvet and rolls of silk. They toiled through the night, each stitch a silent vow to do justice to the country gentleman's daughter. Velvet gowns were woven in forest hues, deep emerald like winter pines, rich browns echoing ancient bark, and silver-threaded accents that gleamed like morning dew. Beside them lay silken bolts draped like moonlit ponds, each shimmering swath pierced by the tailor's needle. Every yard of fabric was meticulously measured and cut. Every lace panel and silk bow was placed with precision, crafting a vision refined enough to catch the eye of Europe's most powerful monarch. Amid the symphony of shears snipping and needles sewing, your mother sat nearby, her eyes damp with unshed tears. She gently helped you into the travel gown lined with soft sheepskin, not out of sorrow for parting, but because she understood, as all mothers do, that you were stepping into a grand legend, brimming with perilous promise. She recalled the romantic tales read by firelight princesses who triumphed over trials, some becoming counts or duchesses, their fortunes brighter than any dream. Yet your mother refused to dwell on darker fates. She set aside her fears and lovingly packed the oak travel chest. Delicate embroidered handkerchiefs, a small jewellery box holding pearls and fine gold beads, a bottle of French rosewater, and a slender velvet wrap to ward off evening chills. The journey to Greenwich would take 3 days on horseback. Each dawn brought the scent of dry grass and dewy earth, and the distant calls of forest cranes. The landscape shifted gently, golden fields where sparrows flitted, to verdant oak groves stretching skyward. Every mile revealed a new wonder. Peaceful villages, humble thatched cottages, livestock grazing by babbling brooks. Villagers along the route paused their tasks, turning to watch the procession with a blend of curiosity and admiration. They murmured about the guards' finely polished armour and elaborate longbows, and marvelled at the lavish coach beside the canvas tents. They speculated whether you were the mayor's daughter or a newly appointed courtier. Young girls whispered eagerly, their eyes shining. She must be the lady invited to the king's grand banquet, and with each resonant hoofbeat, your spirits soared before endless possibilities where power entwined with strategy, where beauty could unlock the doors of destiny, and where a courageous heart was poised to write its own legend. The village girls of your age, their bare feet stained with mud from the winding country paths, stood tucked beneath the eaves to watch you. Their eyes held astonishment tinged with envy as they saw you draped in a velvet cloak that gleamed in the pale winter sunlight. They whispered among themselves, "She must be going to the palace. I heard the king summoned her." Every girl dreams of wearing such splendor. In that moment, you realized you were living the dream of countless country maidens, summoned to the palace, clad in silk and velvet, about to enter an unimaginable world of luxury. Your heart fluttered with excitement and trembled with the weight of the responsibility ahead. A gentle breeze slipped through your hair, carrying the damp scent of wild grass and a faint aroma of decaying oak from the old fence posts. In the distance, the arched entrance of Greenwich emerged, towering beneath the cold grey sky. Its spires rose like a promise of an unparalleled adventure, each honey-coloured stone edged in gold that sparkled in the waning light. Beyond the walls, you pictured the lavish festival awaiting you. Vast halls lit by hundreds of candles, the soft strumming of lutes accompanying courtly dances, tables brimming with roasted birds. As you crossed the threshold, you ceased to be Elizabeth Blount, the farm girl by the riverside, and became the centerpiece of a priceless painting, destined to be immortalized on a grand canvas. The magnificent gowns you would wear would set the fashion for noble women, and your smiles and glances would become the talk of diplomats and dignitaries across Europe. The sensation of being desired by the most powerful man in Europe seemed to suffuse every breath you took. The air around you felt charged with the magic of fairy tales. Greenwich's bells did not toll like the familiar church bells, but rang with crystalline tones, echoing with unspoken understanding. Each rustic peal became an enchanting summons, beckoning every heart to partake in a spectacle far more bewitching than quiet prayers. A journey of glory, power, and legendary love. When dawn gently replaces the night, the maid softly taps at your door and whispers to rouse you. A bell peals down the marble corridor as the court musicians begin their opening aria harpstrings, and a solitary viol weaving through the rustle of silk and the swish of skirts, punctuated by soft French voices. French, the language of refinement, of romantic elegance, of realms far beyond ordinary experience. Your chamber lies at the corridor's end, its walls soaring and draped in hand-embroidered tapestries, recounting courtly love stories, knights presenting jewelled rings to Cornouaille's princess, scenes of glittering dances beneath fireflies, banners bearing the royal arms unfurling in a gentle breeze. Oil lamps on brass brackets reflect the candlelight, illuminating every golden stitch in the tapestry. The leaded glass windows, set in oaken frames, transform the winter sun into vibrant ribbons of colour, dancing across the polished oak floor and Persian carpets underfoot. The furniture masterpieces of the realm's finest artisans includes a dragon and phoenix-carved armchair, a silver-inlaid tea table, and hidden cabinets with gleaming enamel surfaces. The air itself is tinged with damask rosewater and rare ambret essence, a lavish yet comforting scent that awakens every sense. The 5 maidens sharing your room are daughters of dukes and counts, trained by Italian dance masters to glide through minuet steps before tall mirrors, and taught by Parisian music instructors to distinguish F minor from B flat, to sing love ballads penned by Ronsard and Moreau. Their conversations flow effortlessly between English, French, and Italian, covering topics from romantic sonnets to theological debates, drawing you in with warm generosity rather than alienation. Among them, Mary Carey becomes your confidant and most patient guide. 19 years old, her hair shimmers like autumn sunlight, her eyes sparkle like amber. Having spent 2 years at court, she knows every secret passage and hidden alcove in the rose garden. Mary describes to you the dawn rituals in the Great Hall, how to position yourself to catch the king's eye, when to lower your gaze or slightly curve your lips to show modesty. Mary's most vital lesson is learning to read the subtleties of royal attention. When the throne's curtains part, the faint warmth flooding the throne room heralds the king's presence. When the lass next to you shifts her silk train, you can tell mealtime is nigh. When a companion glances your way from the table's edge, it signals the court's favour is shifting. She demonstrates with private gestures. As you pass a dimly lit mirror, her slight smile whispers, "Always keep your calm." That morning, after you apply a light touch of makeup, style your hair into a French hood worthy of a duchess, and don the sapphire travel gown, Mary takes your hand and whispers, "Remember, beauty draws the gaze, but only intelligence holds the heart." You glance at the 5 new faces each, a unique story, a distinct upbringing but united by a shared belief in the wondrous, enigmatic journey you are about to undertake. When Emperor Henry VIII stepped into the chamber, the very air transformed. The gentle strains of the violin ensemble gave way to the rhythmic beat of ceremonial drums, mingling with whispers of rustling silks and the lingering scent of incense. Mary Carey, at your side, leaned in to whisper as you hesitated between 2 gowns, one in deep sapphire blue like a moonlit lake, the other in verdant forest green, echoing the first stirrings of spring leaves. "When the king arrives," she murmured, "choose the hue that makes you stand out most." Every corner of the room burst into life. Brass candelabras scattered flickering lights across the soaring vaulted ceiling, reflecting off golden inlays and ornate mosaics. The stone walls were hung with tapestries so finely embroidered they depicted fierce battle scenes on one side and romantic courtly love on the other knights, offering roses to smiling ladies, swans entwined on enchanted streams. Each step you took across the vibrant Persian carpet seemed to resonate like a wordless symphony. As he appeared, tall and imposing, his velvet cloak trailing regally behind him, the courtiers and attendants all bowed low. In an instant, the hall erupted in animated chatter, voices, laughter, and admiring glances. Then, Henry's gaze found you. That single moment stretched into eternity. You could feel warmth radiate from his very presence, as if the sun itself had dipped below the horizon just to shine upon your face, illuminating your smile and kindling your spirit. Your very first breakfast in the great hall surpassed any royal grandeur you had ever imagined. The antechamber unfolded like a cathedral of earthly delights. Lofty vaults overhead, stained glass windows casting dazzling rainbows, beeswax torches lining the aisles, their amber glow accentuating the carved marble pillars. The stones themselves seemed to hold centuries of music, laughter, and courtly secrets. The banquet tables gleamed with silver and gold, filigreed platters etched with floral motifs, goblets inlaid with gemstones, all sparkling beneath the candlelight. First came the roasted swan, its snowy plumage intact, its neck arched gracefully as if it glided upon an invisible mirrored surface. Next rose a castle of sugar and marzipan, complete with frosted turrets and fluttering banners. Then came pies that released fragrant plumes of steam redolent with cinnamon and nutmeg, tempting every guest to breathe deeply in eager anticipation. Just as you were about to lift your spoon, you realized that the true feast was not the sumptuous dishes before you, but the grand performance unfolding around you. Each exchanged look, each fleeting smile, each whispered phrase revolved around influence and power. From that instant, you understood you were no longer merely a guest at the table. but the central figure in a lavish courtly drama where beauty, intellect, and courage would shine brightest of all. The roasted swans were artfully arranged on silver platters, as if dancers caught in mid-performance. Their necks arched gracefully as they listened to a hidden melody, each feather meticulously sculpted into silky white robes. The culinary artistry lay cleverly concealed beneath this majestic guise. Only when the layers of decorative foil were gently removed did the tender, spice-rubbed meat reveal itself, soft and richly flavored. Beside them stood miniature castles of sugar and almond paste, conjuring a fairy tale realm upon the banquet table, soaring towers topped with fluttering pennants, and gingerbread windows glowing as though lit from within. Every almond was blanched, candied according to a secret family recipe, so that each bite greeted the palate with a delicate sweetness balanced by a buttery finish, crackling softly like whispered dreams. Warm, freshly baked pastries exuded steam redolent of cinnamon, star anise, and a hint of Burgundy wine vinegar. That aroma drifted throughout the great hall, settling onto the fur rugs and beneath the carved marble columns, reminding all who inhaled it that cuisine nourishes not just body but also sparks refined conversation. Yet what truly overwhelmed you was the grandeur of the setting itself. Every silver and gold embossed table mirrored the spirit of the court, dancing lights across the metal surfaces, mingling with the calculated glances and carefully practiced smiles of the guests. Each spoken word, from friendly banter to covert political maneuverings, unfolded like an exquisite dance, where every gesture was a step and every glance a deliberate rhythm. Before you, a mosaic-framed tapestry depicted the dynasty's storied past. Epic battles, resplendent coronations, and solemn investitures. The sounds and energy of court life wrapped around your mind, and you realized this was not merely breakfast, it was an initiation into a world where life itself became performance. Beauty served as the medium, and untold possibilities awaited your discovery. Then Henry VIII entered, and you understood why the fate of kingdoms swayed with the power of his presence. At 28, he strode into the hall like a deity in mortal flesh. Tall, golden, haired as if sunlight itself crowned him, broad, shouldered as if to guard the throne. His hands, once wielding sword and trophy, now commanded the room with a single glance or word. He did not merely attract attention. He elevated it to something richer and more intense than imaginable. When he laughed, the sound swept through the hall like a fresh breeze, making the Persian carpets glow more vividly and the soaring vaults shimmer all the brighter. When he spoke, even the simplest utterances carried the weight of pronouncements capable of shaping the destiny of a dynasty and the future of Europe. His gaze, as it swept across the marble courtyard, was like the softest touch on each noble face. Every corner of the court reflected countless images, but only Henry VIII's eyes electrified the solemn air. As he moved slowly along the central aisle, his crimson velvet cloak billowing behind him, the entire palace fell silent the moment his gaze passed by. Then, wondrously, his eyes landed on you, lingering long enough to acknowledge your presence before drifting onward, and in that instant you realized you had received something more precious than gold or jewels. It was the moment Henry Tudor captured your image among countless faces. He had truly seen you. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Whispers swelled among the courtiers, the clinking of goblets grew uneven, incense smoke curled in the candlelight, and distant drums joined the courtly music in a silent, powerful symphony. You felt your heart pulse in time with that invisible beat, a single note in Tudor's unspoken orchestra of authority. Beneath the gilded table, Mary Carey squeezed your hand, her warmth trembling with excitement. Her eyes glowed like lanterns in the darkest night, her pale lips curving into a knowing smile. "The game has begun," she whispered, yet her tone suggested nothing ordinary. This was the most captivating game imaginable, where the prize exceeded anything you had ever dreamed of winning. Beside Mary, the other maidens, daughters of dukes and counts, exchanged furtive glances of celebration. Subtle nods, quiet smiles, a delicate flutter of silk fans anticipating the glow still lingering in the king's gaze. None dared breathe too deeply, fearing to break the sacred moment in which he bestowed his first look upon you. Outdoors, winter fog clung to Westminster's cold stones, yet within the great hall there was no chill. The air was warm with the scent of sandalwood, and the biting wind beyond the walls could not penetrate the thick masonry. Above you, the vaulted ceiling bore carved Tudor emblems, white and red roses entwined around a crown, each motif shimmering in the candlelight. Stained glass windows depicted autumnal rose gardens, trickling streams, and transforming firebirds, their brilliance intensified by the lantern glow. This architectural marvel was more than mere backdrop. It was a storyteller itself. Every stone and sculpted frieze pointed toward the throne, where the king ruled not by force alone but by an uncanny magnetism. The moment he smiled at you, you felt a warmth that dispelled all doubts like a winter sun briefly breaking through the clouds. Mary whispered again, "Now the path lies before you. Each step will be a test. Each look from the emperor will pivot your fate." She guided you through the hall to an antechamber lined with portraits of Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn. There, you grasped your mission, not only to retain his gaze, but to make it the beacon that would guide your destiny at court. With breath shallow and determination blazing in your heart, you prepared to enter the greatest game of your life, where the line between power and passion is as thin as the silk thread in the gown you wore. Dressing for Henry's court was not merely a matter of choosing clothes. It was a living metaphor for power and allure, a process of crafting the perfect feminine image, potent enough to captivate and hold the gaze of a king who possessed all of Europe's beauties. Your journey into this refined art began with Agnes, your devoted lady's maid who carried the keen intellect of a strategist disguised in service. Agnes was far more than a seamstress. She had tailored gowns for 3 of the king's most celebrated favourites, rosebuds, that once shone brightly before fading under Tudor arches. As she carefully opened your wardrobe, her expert eyes scanned each layer of silk, each fringe of delicate tassel, and every lace trim. She taught you how to select gowns that spoke of subtlety, not ostentation. Emerald tones edged with fine gold, muted embroidery rather than extravagant appliqué, cuts that hugged the body yet allowed freedom of movement. His Majesty treasures refinement, not display. Agnes explained in a warm but resolute tone. He desires sensuality without vulgarity. Above all, he values unassuming beauty, like a wildflower blossoming on a rugged cliff, a gift that demands extraordinary skill to unveil. The next morning, you awoke in your dressing chamber, a treasure trove of imported French silk, delicate velvet, and countless accessories ranging from pearls to gilt filigree. Agnes guided you to a grand mirror inlaid with silver, where you would become the day's focal point. The first step was the corset. Agnes handed you the newest piece, lined with fine lace and reinforced with bone stays. Every lacing was measured to the millimetre, sculpting a tiny waist and an upright posture, the very image Renaissance artists idealized. "Do not think of it as a shackle," she advised while fastening the ties just so, "but rather the springboard of your poise. Oh, next." She selected a mist blue silk gown, skillfully cut at the waist to accentuate your shoulders and collarbone. She demonstrated how to arrange the folds so that each step made the skirt swirl like butterfly wings, ensuring the king's gaze would follow every curve. A subtle accessory, a lace band around the thigh, served as Agnes's secret weapon, drawing the eye each time you sat or mounted your steed. Finally, Agnes pinned a small pearl hair comb into your coiffure, a shimmering accent within your flowing tresses. She spritzed damask rosewater on your wrists and nape, where your warmth would release the fragrance gradually throughout the day. "Let your scent be your message," she whispered, both inviting and lingering. The entire morning routine became a masterclass in feminine power. You learned to move like a queen, each step deliberate yet fluid, each glance a blend of humility and pride. You practiced riding in an upright stance, reins held gracefully, ready to appear beside the king in majestic hunts. And you mastered the art of smiling a warmth that conveyed sincerity without sacrificing subtlety. When the transformation was complete, Agnes stepped back, appraising you head to toe with satisfaction. "You do more than wear a gown," she declared. "You embody an emblem of power and grace. Now step forth and announce that Elizabeth Blount has arrived." Your garments were chosen as sophisticated weapons in the most elegant battle ever witnessed in the Tudor court. These fabrics were far more than mere clothes. They were statements of power and allure. First in your wardrobe was a gown of deep sapphire silk, its hue as profound as the ocean's gem. That shade made your skin glow like pearl, exuding a cold yet mesmerizing aura. Next came the forest velvet, its warm, muted green, evoking both opulence and genuine approachability. In the candlelit splendor of the great hall, each fold of the velvet seemed to absorb the breath of the room and quietly reveal an irresistible depth of charm. Equally essential was the golden silk, a fabric woven with metallic threads that caught and reflected every flicker of light. As you turned, the silk glimmered like an inner halo, compelling even the nearest nobles to glance your way. Under the high canopy of the throne room, the golden drapes did more than make you stand out. They ignited a quiet confidence within your heart. Each dress told its own tale, of status, taste, and the power to captivate those in highest command. The sleeves were masterpieces of tailoring, detachable and interchangeable, trimmed with fine French lace and delicate silver tassels. Every seam displayed hours of labour by London's finest seamstresses, with threads of gold and costly silk that could bankrupt a middle-ranking noble striving to be in your presence. Today, Agnes chose for you a gown with short sleeves, accentuated by silver filigree, woven in gentle curves that sparkled whenever you raised your arm to greet. That silver shimmered like moonlight on skin, enhancing your eyes and graceful gestures. Tomorrow, you might don a pearl lace dress. Tiny pearls meticulously sewn into patterns recalling classical Greece or verses of contemporary poetry adored by the king himself. That gown would transform you into a living portrait, reflecting intellect and social gravitas. Equally critical was your hairstyle. Agnes summoned the finest hair braiders from Kent, who wove your locks into an exquisite structure. Concentric braids framing your face and supporting a French hood capped with small gemmed pins. That hood served not for shade or warmth alone. It was a symbol of nobility and learning, an unmistakable sign that you knew courtly protocols and possessed the intellect to hold discourse with scholars in the rose garden. As you completed your attire and gazed into the mirror, you realized that your outfit was not merely shroud or adornment, but both shield and sword. In the Tudor court, every gown, every accessory, every hairstyling decision contributed to the narrative of your life, a saga of power, seduction, and aspiration, reaching for the highest peaks. With these weapons, you did more than appear. You shone, ready to step onto the grand stage called courtly life. Each lock of your hair was sculpted with the precision of a master architect. The court's hair braiders, trained over years under French and Italian masters, deftly twisted every strand into spirals that framed your face. They placed each delicate filament at the perfect angle so that when candlelight struck, your hair would glow like a halo. From the crown down to the nape, your hair was sectioned into tiers, alternating between fine plasma threads and voluminous locks, creating a complex structure that nonetheless appeared entirely natural. They devoted the full 2 hours to this work, fully aware that beauty at this level was not merely art but also politics, a silent message to the entire court of your power and stature. But it did not end with your hair. Choosing jewelry required the strategic acumen of a seasoned diplomat. Pearls, with their creamy luster, symbolized purity and timeless value and evoked the ocean's deep mysteries. The pearl necklace was meticulously selected from the roundest, most perfect specimens, draping evenly around your neck so that each movement at the banquet would send shimmering droplets into the light. In contrast, gold spoke of wealth and royal favor. A finely crafted gold choker nestled beneath the pearls, catching candlelight and evoking the sun, an emblem of sacred power that Renaissance kings often associated with their divine authority. Yet everything had to be delicately balanced. The pearls could not be so abundant as to overwhelm the softness of your skin. The gold could not be so glaring as to appear ostentatious or provocative. Instead, your jewels served as a masterful accent, striking enough to impress, but never so commanding as to steal the spotlight. The secret lay not in wearing more, but in knowing precisely when to stop. Finally, the element that wove it all together was scent. Agnes, your maid and makeup advisor, produced a bottle of pure damask rose oil, imported directly from the French rose gardens. This oil was not only fragrant, but formulated as an alchemical blend, releasing its aroma over the course of a day. She gently applied it to the pulse points on your wrists, and behind your ears, areas where your body warmth would gradually disperse the perfume, enticing those around you without ever overwhelming them. When you stepped before the throne, your hair artfully arranged, your jewelry aglow with pearls and gold, and the delicate rose fragrance lingering, you were not merely a beautiful figure, but a living declaration. Elizabeth Blount, embodying refined beauty, strategic intelligence, and gentle power, was ready to enter a realm where every glance and every breath carried profound political significance. A whisper of musk was gently woven into your scent blend, evoking a subtle sensuality that never overpowered. The musk, warm and skin-like with an air of mystery akin to a moonlit garden, left onlookers spellbound. Next, a rare drop of amber was added, a precious essence as elusive as an eastern gem crafting a luxurious halo around you. Courtiers felt compelled to inquire about the fragrance's origin, yet never could pinpoint it, sensing both intimacy and distance, curiosity and admiration. When Agnes finally stepped back to admire her masterpiece, the entire chamber seemed to hold its breath. Flickering candlelight dancing across silver candlesticks illuminated the edges of your gown and highlighted the radiance of your face. You, Elizabeth Blount, once the daughter of a country gentleman, had transformed into a living icon, one that inspired poets to weave verses and stirred the hearts of Europe's most powerful kings. Yet most astonishing of all was how natural the transformation appeared, as though the grandest version of yourself had waited all your life for this moment to emerge into the light. A gilt-framed mirror stood before you on the dressing table, reflecting an image so vivid you could nearly hear the brushstrokes of Hans Holbein, the court portraitist, preparing to capture your likeness for royal galleries that would admire it for centuries. Your coiled hair, luminous eyes, and a soft, confident smile merged into a living canvas transcending any static painting. In the reflection, your beauty appeared timeless yet wholly present in the moment, refined enough to captivate the most scholarly minds who hide behind leather-bound tomes, yet innocent enough to prompt influential men to be the first to explore the depths in your gaze. It was a beauty that bordered on the surreal, drawing people in with its authenticity. But Agnes, with the practiced eye of someone who had dressed 3 of the king's former favourites, could not hide the hint of concern behind her tender affection. She approached, adjusted a corset strap, smoothed a fold of fabric, then paused and offered a smile laced with a warning. "You look like a woman capable of reshaping a kingdom," she murmured softly. "But remember, with such power comes the responsibility to wield it wisely. This captivating beauty is both gift and burden, opening doors and harbouring dangers." Agnes's words etched a vital truth into your mind. Beauty is not merely an ornament of appearance, but a tool for determining one's destiny. And at that instant, as your eyes met hers in the mirror, you realized you were prepared for the greatest performance of your life, where beauty, intelligence, and courage would together pen the next chapter of Tudor history. The copper key in your hand gleamed as an invitation to secret royal corridors you had never dared imagine. Each door swung open to reveal new marvels, from marble corridors lined with Henry VIII's life portraits to a dance hall with polished hardwood floors and crystal chandeliers suspended above. But today, your journey culminated in the Great Hall, where the Emperor's breakfast transformed simple nourishment into the day's grandest ceremony. You entered the hall as part of a carefully orchestrated procession of England's most beautiful and accomplished women. Velvet cloaks trimmed with silver, exquisitely coiffed hair, and confident steps moved like a refined ballet. Each woman in the procession was a living gem in Henry's resplendent crown, from duke's daughters to royal musicians. The hall itself was crafted to dazzle the senses. Gothic ribs soared overhead, supported by sandstone columns against walls painted with scenes from classical mythology. Your gaze traced friezes of Apollo driving his sun chariot and Diana hunting in a moonlit grove. From an adjacent gallery, the court's choristers raised their voices in a harmonious lullaby, soft yet commanding. Rich tapestries cloaked the walls, each a woven epic in silk and gold thread. Knights rescuing maidens amidst enchanted forests, nymphs dancing by silver streams. Tracery windows, towering nearly 20 feet high, caught the dawn's light and fractured it into dancing rainbows on the flagstone floor. Birdsong and the rustle of enchantment seemed painted into the glass itself, inviting nature's glory into the royal abode. Your seat at the table was determined by strict court hierarchy. The carved teak chair featured Tudor rose motifs and a velvet cushion dyed in royal blue. Even the farthest place from the throne felt magnificent to any outsider, for every vantage point offered a breathtaking view of opulence. A linen, clothed table, edged in intricate French lace, gleaming beneath the morning light. The table itself was a marvel of precious metals and crystal, Silver plates etched with floral patterns, gilded cutlery arranged with ceremonial precision, and faceted crystal goblets catching the glow of beeswax candles. Hundreds of candles flickered in brass candelabras, their warm light dancing across a sea of polished metal. Royal stewards and master chefs moved through the hall like a choreographed ballet, one bearing a platter of perfectly roasted swans with pearlescent feathers and arched necks, another presenting sugar and almond castles complete with tiny, fluttering flags, yet another unveiling fragrant pastries releasing wisps of spiced smoke, redolent of amber and star anise. Each dish was a feast for the senses, an artwork inviting you to savor every detail. The only sounds in the hall were hushed, reverent whispers, the soft clink of goblets, and the subtle scrape of silver against fine porcelain. Yet the greatest feast was not the food itself, but the social performance unfolding. The graceful interplay of intellect and beauty in every glance, the subtle exchange of power beneath polite conversation. As you lifted your first spoonful sweet jam, infused with tropical fruits, you felt not just nourishment, but an initiation into a world where every moment was a ritual, every glance a story, and life itself a splendid drama under Tudor candlelight. The food was presented in successive waves, as if Henry VIII himself wanted to prove that earthly paradise was not just legend, but being crafted within the palace kitchen. First, intricately engraved silver platters arrived, each plate like a miniature frame holding delicate appetizers. Then, the red and white clad attendants glided in like dancers, setting upon the table sculptures of culinary artistry, whole roast swans placed atop polished metal mirrors. Their arched necks resembled carved marble, their down-soft feathers meticulously arranged so one had to peer closely to discern they were indeed roasted fowl, seasoned flawlessly, the skin crisp and the meat meltingly tender. But the spectacle did not end there. Castles of almond paste and sugar emerged like something out of a fairy tale. Pastry architects had built sturdy sugar towers, prim windows of brown sugar and panes of white sugar that glittered from within by candlelight. Tiny paper pennants fluttered in the gentle breezes born from hundreds of candles arrayed around the display. When one of the pastries was cut, not only did fragrant steam of cinnamon, star anise, and orange swirl up, but actual sugar songbirds, housed in secret compartments, suddenly took wing, trilling merrily as they soared beneath ceilings painted with flocks of birds sweeping across verdant hills. The pure notes of their song and the delighted laughter of onlookers filled the great hall. Amid this revelry, the wine carriers stepped forward. The imperial vintages on offer would bankrupt ordinary nobility. Sweet nectars from Crete with sunshine, like warmth that cleansed the soul. Deep, warming reds from Bordeaux that kindled the heart, and elegantly light whites from the Rhine Valley, pale as morning dew, evoking the fresh clarity of a spring dawn. Each goblet was thoughtfully paired with specific dishes to elevate the culinary journey to sensory perfection. Eating here was a ritual of sight and sound as much as taste and aroma. A court string ensemble played Baroque melodies, and flickering candles reflected across polished floors, creating an otherworldly ambiance. Gentle murmurs mingled with the clink of crystal glasses in a refined symphony, awakening every sense. The great hall served not merely as a dining venue, but as a stage for power and taste. Seated atop vibrant Persian carpets beneath vaulted ceilings painted in classical European motifs, you experienced breakfast and a pageant of authority unfolding in tandem. With every spoonful of sweet soup, every slice of succulent meat, and every sip of crystalline wine, you realized the court had elevated breakfast to its most perfect art form, where cuisine and luxury merged seamlessly, creating paradise before your very eyes. But the true feast was not merely the splendid table of roast swans and sugar castles. It lay in the refined conversations that unfolded amidst those material pleasures. You sat among daughters of Europe's most eminent noble houses, each raised in an atmosphere of perfect education. Italian ballet, Latin and Greek, theological philosophy, and the subtle art of courtly discourse. They discussed the latest Petrarchan sonnets with poetical precision, savouring each metaphor as if discovering hidden gems, then immediately shifted to the political upheavals of the French court, analysing affairs of state with the expertise of historians and statesmen. Their voices blended into a symphony of intellect and wit, turning the breakfast into a cultural colloquium. The atmosphere resonated not only with soft whispers, but with the pulse of knowledge in motion. The measured tone of a female historian recounting Anglo-Spanish diplomacy, the playful laugh of a lady who recounted satirical anecdotes about factional struggles among German princes. Margaret Douglas, the king's own niece, became your trusted guide through the labyrinth of court society. Having grown up amid gilded corridors, she pointed out the unseen forces at play, how a fleeting glance could ignite a rumour, how a carefully crafted compliment could forge a political alliance. She spoke of the recent returnee from Paris who brought the latest French silhouette and the diaphanous veil destined to set fashion ablaze across Europe. Beside her, a polyglot lady fluent in 4 languages shared her correspondence with renowned humanists, debating theological reforms and offering scholarly critique. The most captivating aspect wasn't the particulars of the gossip, but the way information was woven into seemingly innocuous chatter. News from the Spanish court, rumours of Venetian trade policies, even whispers of a newly discovered gold mine in the Pyrenees, each detail threaded through conversation, conveyed with poised gestures, glances, and smiles. You realised that true intelligence lay encoded in polite banter, exchanged as goblets were raised, pastries tasted, and handkerchiefs brushed against satin sleeves. You were not merely dining, you were immersed in the most sophisticated power network in Europe, where breakfast served as the day's first lecture. As you listened, questioned, and offered opinions, you learned not only literature and politics, but also how the world turned, who was rising, who was falling, and who held the real keys to power. It was a captivating performance, where every whispered exchange carried the potential to alter destinies, and you, as a promising newcomer, were slowly imprinting your own mark on this grand narrative. You sat at the heart of power, where intellect and status converged to teach how true authority operates at the pinnacle of European society. The whispers, soft laughter, and polished exchanges were not mere entertainment, but living lessons in ambition, alliance, and strategy. Through every conversation ran an undeniable current, the presence of Henry VIII King on the throne. Even when Henry was locked in serious debate with his closest advisors across tables, discussing Erasmus's latest treatise or naval strategies against France, the atmosphere still orbited him like planets around the Sunday, faces subtly tilted toward the throne, eyes tracking his slightest gesture, for every movement might signal approval, rebuke, or favour. Each laugh from the women in the hall carried hope of catching Henry's gaze. Each witty remark was measured to garner his interest. A comment on Italian art not only revealed refined taste but also scholarly depth. A compliment on a lady's French hood concealed her desire to become the king's next muse. Every gesture, from a graceful curtsy to the lift of a goblet, was laced with potential acknowledgement or dismissal. When Henry rose to address the court, the air transformed instantly. Conversation fell away like waves retreating from the shore, not out of fear but in anticipation. The entire hall held its breath. Hands paused mid-gesture, heads lifted from books, even servants paused their tray tasks, all eyes fixed upon the throne. His voice, resonant with authority yet warm in tone, filled the vast chamber. As he announced the day's entertainment, each word struck hearts like keys on a grand harpsichord. By tradition, today we embark on the hunt through the Wiltshire forests, Henry proclaimed, his voice confident. The deer await, our steeds are saddled. This is more than sport. It is drama where skill, valour, and unity are tested. The announcement ignited a spark of excitement. Eyes brightened, lips curved into smiles, and cheeks flushed with the promise of adventure. The royal hunt had long been legendary, a sport and a ritual of power. It offered the most skilled riders a chance to shine, the deftest archers to prove their mettle, and filled the court with fervour. In the early morning light on dew-kissed grass, you pictured the procession of horsemen winding through ancient oaks, the thunder of hooves echoing beneath the canopy, the cry of "Begin!" echoing with cheers of encouragement. At that moment, every spectacle in the great hall was overshadowed by the grandeur of nature and human courage. With the king's hunting invitation, you were not merely joining a thrilling pastime, but stepping into a lesson in power, where talent, loyalty, and bravery won lasting favour. And here in that blurred line between amusement and politics, you understood more vividly than ever that the court was not just a place to live, but a crucible where authority was born, tested, and affirmed. Margaret caught your eye from across the table, her lashes arching in both excitement and gentle warning. "Do you ride well enough to keep up?" she whispered. That tone, half challenge, half encouragement, hinted that today's hunt would distinguish those truly at home in the court from those who only looked splendid in the hall. Yet her voice promised a thrilling test, one that made royal life endlessly fascinating rather than truly fearful. The first light of dawn stretched across the palace grounds like a watercolour painting. Mist clung to emerald grass, and ancient oaks loomed grey with dew. A cool breeze brushed your skin, carrying hints of oak resin and wet earth. You donned your deep forest green riding habit, a velvet suit that hugged your form and shimmered like emeralds in morning light. Its tailored bodice cinched your waist, and billowed sleeves allowed unrestricted movement, crucial for a competitor in Europe's grandest sporting contest. Your mount, a prized Frey, had been specially chosen for this occasion. Sleek yet powerful, she bore a coat the colour of burnished bronze, gleaming under the sunrise. Her intelligent eyes revealed she understood the day's import, not just a hunt, but a stage for proving worth. Her temperament melded nimble agility for weaving through ancient glades with steadfast reliability, allowing you to ride confidently alongside the kingdom's finest equestrians. Ahead rode Henry VIII astride, a legendary destrier-fabled steeds of mythology come to life. Towering and muscular, the horse seemed plucked from Arthurian legend rather than mere pasture stock. Seated with regal ease, Henry embodied medieval kingship's romance, overlaid with the refined polish of his Polish Renaissance education. Clad in velvet and light armour, he squinted against the dawn, commanding every gaze. At 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered and trained in martial arts and music alike, he represented the era's ideal of masculine perfection. When Henry smiled and nodded at the assembling party, the air crackled with excitement. The thunder of hooves mixed with hushed murmurs as courtiers, foreign diplomats and noble guests converged. Each participant, from plume-topped viscounts to silk-clad ladies, contributed to a tableau of splendor under the rising Sunday. The array of sapphire-blue cloaks, gleaming armor, and gilded stirrups intensified the scene's grandeur. Most captivating was the careful selection of the court's beautiful and capable women. These were not mere decorations, but figures born for curiosity. Daughters of dukes who had learned Italian dance, students of courtly etiquette and music, or scholars fluent in French and Latin who had debated theology and poetry over late-night candles. Each woman in the hunting posse carried her own narrative. One had been the muse to a famous historian. Another served as an aid to the most erudite humanists in England. Their presence declared their preparation. Years of training, social maneuvering, all culminating in this regal spectacle. Their shared mission was to demonstrate standing, forge alliances, and, with luck, win the king's favour. As the master horseman raised his crop and the cry, "Begin!" echoed through the trees, hooves thundered and hearts raced. They surged into the chase, an event as much drama as sport, where skill and bravery intertwined, and history once again inscribed the names of those daring enough to ride out at dawn. Agnes met you at the stable in the pre-dawn darkness. By the flicker of torchlight, she skillfully helped you into the crimson calfskin saddle, its ebony wood frame carved with intricate patterns. The scent of fresh straw blended with the warm musk of the fray beneath you. Agnes gently adjusted the reins and aligned your stirrups for perfect posture. Each whisper from her was like a legacy passed down through generations of court women who mastered the delicate balance of courage and self-preservation. "Ride confidently, but not recklessly," she warned. "Remember, you must shine, not eclipse the king." The torchlight danced across her face as she leaned in to check your mount. She recounted aiding 3 of the king's former favourites onto their steeds, imparting the same lesson each time: how to feel every movement of the horse, how to guide the reins with absolute finesse, and most importantly, how to remain calm when the pace quickens. Only minutes remained before the bugle would sound. You inhaled deeply, sensing the fray's steady breath and latent strength beneath you. Agnes gripped your hand for a moment, her eyes brimming with faith and expectation. "Show spirit but avoid daring," she counselled as she released the reins. "Demonstrate skill, not rivalry. Be admired for grace rather than audacity." She stepped back into the shadows, wishing you luck before vanishing from sight. At the first bugle blast, you realized everything you thought you knew about horsemanship was mere preparation. Henry pressed his mount forward, and in a breathtaking surge, the English countryside transformed into an autumnal haze of reds and golds. Crimson maples, tawny oaks, and flocks of geese etched the sky with dark strokes. Each hoofbeat carried you through a majestic scene. Misty marshland, streams gleaming like scattered diamonds, wild grasses rustling along the path. The pace swept you into an epic poem. The thunder of hooves, your hair whipping in the wind, and every movement of Henry as legendary as a heroic saga. The scenery unfurled like a Renaissance church fresco, vaulted arches of ancient oaks, dappled sunlight through coloured leaves, and shadows playing across the ground. Centuries-old oaks lined the path, their ancient trunks guardians of kings past. Sunbeams pierced the canopy, illuminating the muddy banks of shallow pools with radiant patches. The chorus of the hunt, the calls, the hoofbeats, the collective gasp merged with distant songbirds, awakening every sense. You followed Henry across rolling hills and through fields of ripening wheat that shimmered like waves of gold. Each shift in your weight, each subtle squeeze of the stirrup ignited your heartbeat. Henry's indomitable will manifested in Destria's powerful strides, each hoofall a testament to the irresistible authority coursing through the hunt. As you held your place alongside the king, the sensation of riding an epic tale only intensified. Every moment brimmed with significance. Every gesture bore the weight of legend. The royal hunt proved to be no mere test of endurance, but a crucible of spirit and strategy where bravery, poise, and finesse converged beneath the grand, untamed beauty of England's dawn. But the true marvel lay in watching Henry himself amid these moments of pure physical exertion and raw emotion. As he swept through the ancient oak forest, each muscle rippling beneath velvet sleeves, the burdens of the throne seemed to dissolve. The surroundings gnarled trunks, casting dancing shadows on the track. Sunlight flickering through leaves became the perfect stage for a performance focused solely on strength and grace. Every thrust of his heel, every tug on the reins, exuded harmony between rider and steed, as though their union composed a symphony of body and spirit. He became a living poem in motion, the flawless fusion of power and refinement. Under the morning sun, the golden embroidery on his coat caught every ray, rendering Henry a figure both heroic and ethereal. The way his shoulder bunched with each lean toward the archers, or when he lightly tapped the saddle with his crop, held all eyes captive. Noble women from the highest benches watched breathlessly, willing to risk their reputations for a chance to ride beside him. When a magnificent stag burst from the undergrowth, darting toward the ready archers, Henry pursued with breathtaking speed. It was not merely a hunt, but a testament to the wild instincts hidden beneath regal finery. His gaze fixed on the quarry intense, unwavering, and his clenched jaw conveyed the drama of the chase with every heartbeat. The entire hunting party pulsed with this energy. The thunder of hooves echoed through the groves like war drums. You prided yourself on staying at the forefront, combining deft skill, fortunate timing, and your fray's eager spirit. The wind tangled your curls, the scent of damp foliage filled your senses, and your heart pounded in harmony with the hooves, a pure exhilaration unlike any royal banquet you had ever known. Then, in a decisive moment, disaster struck. Jane Parker, riding close beside you, lashed her crop with too much force, causing her mount to stumble on an exposed root. In an instant, she was airborne, her cloak billowing mid-flight. Anxious gasps rose around you as hooves braked sharply. Driven purely by instinct, hesitation would have been too late. You wheeled your horse and leapt forward, pulling Jane clear of danger. The rescue happened so swiftly you barely registered thought, focused only on saving her. In those first seconds afterwards, you felt Jane's heartbeat through her ragged breathing, then her sigh of relief as she steadied. Henry halted his steed, brushed dust from his velvet sleeve, and offered a slight nod of approval. It was more than praise. It was acknowledgement that he had seen a courage equal to loyalty. The hunt resumed. But for you, that moment defined your new path. From country maiden dazzled by courtly spectacle to a figure inextricably woven into the Tudor legend. Only after Jane was securely back in her saddle did you realize Henry had witnessed your rescue. As his destrier ambled beside you, his composed yet curious demeanor revealed that he recognized the very qualities he valued most in those he kept close. "Well done," his voice rang out clearly amidst the thunder of hooves and shouts of the hunting party. "Courage and kindness in equal measure." His words were not merely praise, but an unspoken acknowledgement that no jewel or fanfare could match. It was the first time since your arrival at court that Henry spoke directly to you. Each word carried a blend of admiration, recognition, and promise of what lay ahead. Yet, its greatest value did not lie in the sound, but in the warmth and encouragement shining in his eyes, an ember of hope kindled in your heart. Through that instinctive act of bravery, you revealed an undeniable facet of your character that truly pleased him, far more than any elaborate performance ever could. As the hunting party gathered once more to continue the chase, Jane Parker, still trembling, gripped your hand beneath her thigh. She whispered earnestly that your timely act of kindness might have forever altered your fate. Genuine compassion, rare in court, becomes priceless when shown at the right moment, to the right person, in the right place. The sensation of respect enveloped the squad, pausing the rhythmic thunder of hooves in reverence for what had just transpired. The remainder of the hunt unfolded in a state of exhilaration and heightened awareness. You not only survived your first royal trial, but shone with a mix of natural grace and strategic brilliance. Every sunset-dappled field, every shaft of twilight filtering through golden meadows, reminded you that you were no longer a newcomer. This morning's events had marked your transformation from hopeful outsider to someone worthy of royal favour, someone whose name would linger in courtly memory. The greatest revelation was that this journey, though fraught with drama, was not a meticulously choreographed spectacle. It was an epic adventure in which your sincerity and courage shone organically. You discovered that success at court does not require losing yourself but becoming the most captivating version of yourself, a blend of intelligence, compassion, and individuality. So tell me in the comments, would you have had the courage to spur your horse forward and save Jane Parker, knowing it could wholly change your destiny? Sometimes, the most significant moments in history hinge on split-second decisions, on choosing compassion over self-preservation. 3 days after the royal hunt that set your heart racing, Agnes gently awakened you before dawn broke. Her warm voice carried a tremor of excitement. Today, you are summoned by the king. Your heart pounded not with fear, but with eager anticipation. Since your arrival at court, this was the first private audience. Not a crowded gathering among courtiers in the Great Hall, but an intimate meeting with the Emperor himself after the evening's entertainment. The invitation was delivered personally by a trusted guard, its flowing calligraphy on thin parchment drawing your gaze. Though the tone was formal, warmth shone through each word. His Majesty requests your presence for conversation and light refreshments in a private chamber after the performance. It was an opening you had longed for, both an honour and a mission. Agnes, her eyes filled with reverence, prepared you as meticulously as if dressing a bride. Instead of your usual resplendent attire, she selected a deep blue silk gown, elegantly tailored to flatter your figure and smooth skin. The gown's simple lines hugged your waist, the drape falling gracefully at your hips for a look of effortless poise. Agnes embroidered fine edging at the cuffs, reminiscent of candlelit evenings. She dressed your hair modestly rather than elaborately, securing it at the nape with a slender gold circlet, letting soft waves frame your shoulders and accentuate the grace of your neck. Your makeup was subtle, a hint of rose on your cheeks, a soft peach on your lips, fine liner to deepen your eyes. The preparation room was hushed except for the gentle rustle of fabric and Agnes's steady breathing. She paced leisurely, examining every detail, then stepped back, nodding in approval. A faint scent of rose and amber lingered, imbuing the air with warmth and luxury. Agnes gazed at you in the mirror, her eyes sparkling with a single message. You are ready. Before she left, she murmured a final counsel. Let your true self shine. The Emperor seeks sincerity, not spectacle. The weight of responsibility settled upon you, yet you felt an unfamiliar confidence. From this day forward, the blue silk gown symbolized more than clothing. It marked the threshold to a new chapter, where you would speak with the king in private, every word and gesture shaping your destiny. Night still clung to the castle corridors as you stepped onto the cool stone floor, torchlight casting long shadows. Each footfall echoed like a herald of fate. Surrounding you, stone walls carved with reliefs, windows reflecting silver moonlight were as expectant as you. With heart aligned to every stride, you approached the great wooden doors, ready for your moment before the Emperor. This preparation felt unlike your usual morning routine. It was no longer a public display, but the most intimate and genuine moment. Rather than heavy makeup and dazzling attire to command royal attention, Today you were guided to shine in your most natural light. Agnes greeted you at the wooden dressing table, candlelight dancing across the bronze mirror. She opened a small wooden box and pulled out a lightweight foundation, just enough to even out your skin tone without covering the faint freckles on your cheeks, those little tokens of your rural life you cherished. Next, she brushed a pastel rose blush onto your cheekbones, giving you a soft, blooming glow like early spring petals. Your eyes were lined with a delicate stroke, reminiscent of the final brush mark on a watercolor painting, adding depth to your gaze. From her jewelry casket, Agnes picked stud pearl earrings, just enough sparkle to accentuate, not distract. Then she selected a slender amber pendant to grace your graceful neck, weaving warmth and mystery together. For your scent, Agnes gently shook a vial of amber rose oil, the aroma whispering through the air like a private poem. It wasn't an overpowering perfume, but a fleeting verse, detected only as you passed. Watching you with knowing eyes, she placed her hand lightly on your shoulder and reminded you, "Remember, the Emperor seeks sincerity, not spectacle." Peering into the mirror, you saw the deep blue silk gown hugging your waist, the gold circlet pinning back your soft waves, and you realized this wasn't just clothing but the very shell of your true self, the most honest and beautiful version of you. Stepping into the corridor, the soft echo of your slippers on cool stone signaled a new chapter. Flickering torchlight carved dreamy patterns on the walls, lending the night a mystical hush. The patinated stone bore carved spirals, recalling ancient secrets. Each footfall resonated like the palace's heartbeat in the darkness, quiet yet full of life. The guards in polished armor acknowledged you with respectful nods, not for your rank but for the courage you displayed. As you approached the gleaming door, a sacred awareness washed over you. Beyond it lay a realm of candlelit warmth, hand-picked silks, and chosen scents, where you would face the Emperor. Crossing the threshold felt like entering an oasis amid stone austerity. Beeswax candles exuded honeyed sweetness mingled with the spicy warmth of sandalwood and eastern spices. Tapestries on the walls depicted goddesses and knights, weaving tales of love and valor. Finely carved furniture formed intimate conversation nooks, far more inviting than any formal ceremony. The scent of woven fabric and wax intertwined with amber blossom, animating the space. Plush velvet chairs beckoned you to relax, letting tension melt away. You were no longer a stranger but belonged here, the focal point of the imminent encounter. Every element from the drape of silk and glow of flame to the undertone of sweetness crafted the truest and most captivating version of yourself, ready for the defining moment ahead. And there, framed by the dancing flames that cast vibrant shadows on the silk-draped walls, stood Henry awaiting you. Yet this was not the public monarch who dominated courts with sheer presence. Instead, he wore a sumptuous brown velvet doublet, impeccably tailored, making him both approachable and irresistibly powerful. The firelight caught his dark blonde hair, giving him a gentle halo. When he offered you a welcoming smile, his expression radiated sincere delight, as though finding a precious treasure on a tranquil night. "Elizabeth," he greeted warmly, his voice ringing with weight and melody. Those words were more than sound, they were recognition, respect, and promise entwined in a single moment of value. "Please, sit by the hearth with me." He gestured toward amber, upholstered chairs set beside a white marble fireplace, where embers leapt cheerfully between ornate iron fender rails. You stepped across a plush fur rug and settled into a finely carved oak armchair, its acanthus leaf scrollwork emphasizing crafted elegance. Before you lay a small ebony table meticulously arranged, a steaming silver teapot, slender crystal glasses of mulled red wine, flavored with cinnamon and clove, each sip fragrant with festive warmth. Nearby, a plate of golden brown apple pastries glistened with forest honey, studded with crushed nuts that added crunch. Another dish held candied fruits sparkling like crystal hazelnuts, soft prunes and citrus jewels bursting with sunlit sweetness. In this warm, private alcove, you forgot the pomp of the outer court. Distant sounds were muffled by thick stone walls. Across the fire sat Henry, less the ruler of a noisy realm and more an intrigued man, listening intently. He leaned forward, hands resting casually on his knees, fully present. Every time you spoke, his gaze deepened, as if noting each nuance. Your conversation began gently. He inquired about your feelings since the hunt 3 days prior, the echo of hooves in the morning mist, and how you felt when you turned to rescue Jane. Gradually, the dialogue shifted to childhood dreams, books read by candlelight from Petrarch's sonnets to new Italian treatises, and he invited you to share which passages resonated most. The flickering hearth light played across every detail, crow's feet at the corners of his eyes, the grain swirling in the armrest, the ripples of silk in your emerald gown. Space and time seemed suspended as two souls conversed without the weight of protocol. The smoky scent of sandalwood and cinnamon intertwined with candle wax, heightening your senses. As the mulled wine warmed your palate, Henry gestured to the leaded glass window. Outside, the crescent moon cast a silver trail across the Thames' dark waters. "Europe is changing," he sighed. "I want to hear your thoughts on these new ideas: liberty, knowledge, and the power of women." His eyes brimmed with trust. This was not merely small talk, but an invitation for you to engage in the grand issues facing the kingdom. But the most remarkable aspect of that evening was the way Henry seemed genuinely intent on making you as comfortable as you desired to please him. This was not the calculated seduction one might expect a courtly display choreographed to court favor, but rather an intimate dance of souls, as though he were sincerely courting you, enraptured by your presence, seeking to delight rather than possess. The atmosphere between you dissolved the weight of protocol, transforming into a private stage where two hearts found inspiration and connection. The night ahead unfolded like a symphony of subtle rhythms. The gentle tilt of his chair to welcome you, his warm voice resonating among ancestral portraits, the hearth's glow wrapping you both in a comforting embrace. For the first time since arriving in Greenwich, you sensed that you were about to learn not merely how to attract a king's glance, but what it felt like to truly enchant one. The golden candlelight, the filigreed silver sconces, the mingling of sandalwood smoke and mulled berry wine created an intoxicating blend of sight, scent, and sound. What transpired over the next hours shattered any preconceptions about royal power and masculine desire. Stripped of his ornate robes and the burdens of public life, Henry revealed not only charm, but genuine interest in you as a person, not a trophy to add to his collection of marvels. He began by asking about your childhood, your family, your reading by candlelight, and the music you loved, giving each answer undivided attention, making you feel intellectually honored in a way you had never known. When you expressed your passion for courtly romance poetry, his eyes lit up with authentic delight. He quoted passages in French and Italian you had never heard, citing Petrarch's eloquence and Louise Labé's fervent verses. His praise carried sincerity and sophistication. Your conversation flowed naturally, a shared discovery of mutual admiration and intellectual companionship. Henry spoke of his own education, his love for sacred choral music echoing in York's cloisters, his theological musings, and his vision for England's place on the European stage. He invited your insights on humanist thought and the political implications of religious reform. He listened with such focused intensity that you felt your intellect was treasured. Beneath the academic discourse ran an undercurrent of attraction, as though each exchange brimmed with potential. Henry had mastered polite flirtation, compliments that were both heartfelt and nuanced, glances that hinted deeper interest without overstepping, gestures that fostered intimacy while preserving respect. When he leaned forward to adjust the fire, when he refilled your goblet, when he stepped closer to study the embroidery on your sleeve, each movement conveyed that you were worthy of personal care. The most astonishing aspect of the evening was the sense of safety you felt, even alone with Europe's most powerful man. His approach to seduction seemed designed to make you feel cherished rather than vulnerable, chosen rather than claimed. He spoke of beauty as encompassing intellect and character rather than mere physical features, and his compliments celebrated both your heroic rescue of Jane Parker and your graceful presence at court. "Your courage makes you truly beautiful," he said in a tone alive with warmth, as though he had discovered something unexpectedly precious. In a court where most act from calculation or fear, your instinctive act of kindness shone as a rare jewel. That single gesture aligned perfectly with the moment and captivated the king's admiration. You returned that night not only having survived your first royal hunt, but having distinguished yourself by being your authentic, strategic self. And it all felt like the grandest adventure, rather than a rehearsed performance, an affirmation that success in court requires neither losing oneself nor feigning, but becoming the most compelling version of who you already are. Royal blood may bestow privilege and power, but it also reveals hidden vulnerabilities few suspect. As the evening mellowed, candlelight mingling with the fragrant wine, Henry lowered his voice to share private reflections, emotions, nestled beneath his commanding exterior. He tilted his chin toward the flickering hearth, his warm tones resonating through the silk-draped chamber and gilded tapestries. People often imagine power as the ultimate strength, he sighed. Yet the greatest burden is loneliness that no one can bear for you. Henry spoke of the emptiness that shadows him even amid crowds. Uncertain whether laughter or conversation touches the man behind the crown or merely the untouchable sovereign. He described moonless nights when the palace lay silent, his own footsteps echoing across cold stone floors, stirring hope and fear in his soul, as he wondered if any truly understood his weighty responsibilities. The banquet hall had emptied, wine goblets drained, candles glowing softly, crafting an atmosphere equal parts intimacy and introspection. Henry recounted the weight of each decree, how a new tax might secure the crown, but imperil countless households, how a single royal judgment could determine life or death for accused traitors. His candor was not manipulation, but a gift, inviting you to perceive the profound responsibilities of a monarch. When he spoke of yearning for someone to share these burdens, it became clear why so many women in history dared risk all to stand by a king, seeking someone who would see beyond titles to the man himself, longing for genuine companionship over political alliance. As he turned the conversation to your own dreams, your voice rang truer and more passionate than ever before. You described your thirst for exploration, unread tomes, distant horizons beyond the village fields where you grew up. You affirmed that life should hold more than domestic stewardship and motherhood, but also passion, adventure, and imprinting one's journey upon the world's map. Henry nodded, his warm smile, honoring the belief that intellect and ambition in a beautiful woman are not contradictions, but rather the sacred flame within a perfect diamond. In that moment he drew nearer, standing beside your chair, his warmth enveloping you like a small fire within your chest. When he gently took your hand to admire the garnet ring, a keepsake from your grandmother, his touch made your heart skip a beat. Leaning forward, his eyes still shining, he whispered, "Your courage leaves me in awe." He then stepped back, pointing to the tapestry depicting Tristan and Isolde entwined, his voice imbued with melancholy. "Their love, like ours, is fierce and perilous, yet makes every trial worth bearing. That closeness was effortless, deep enough to imprint on your heart that regardless of birthright, anyone can find someone to share burdens and truly be understood. Yet what impresses you most is Henry's exquisite restraint, a clear determination to let attraction blossom naturally, rather than simply claiming it by the absolute power his crown permits. In the dim glow of the night, with only embers flickering, you notice that every gesture he makes has been thoughtfully measured. He does not coerce. He invites not with the authority of his throne, but with genuine respect and empathy. Each word feels more like sincere courtship than royal appropriation, making you aware that your consent and enthusiasm truly matter to him, rather than merely serving as pleasant adornments to his satisfaction. As darkness deepens and the candles wane, Henry's conversation drifts to more personal themes. He speaks of love and marriage, the conflict between political duty and personal desire. He recounts his union with Catherine of Aragon, not with bitterness, but with a quiet, sorrowful acceptance, an understanding that duty and passion do not always align as poets suggest. His gaze lingers on the dying firelight, and in that moment he appears both younger and more vulnerable than ever. "I often wonder," he murmurs, "whether one day I might truly choose my own path simply to be with someone I love, regardless of rank or reputation." Those words hang tenderly in the silent room, like a fragile bridge extending toward you. For the first time since you arrived at court, you feel the power of choice, at least a part of it lying in your own hands. In the weeks that follow, you are gently guided by women who have witnessed the rise and fall of royal fortunes. These are not the harsh lessons of tragic legends, but welcoming ceremonies suffused with warmth. Elizabeth Stafford, the Duchess of Norfolk, becomes a second mother with her knowing smile. She leads you through elegant embroidery circles and into the spring garden in full bloom, each flower and blade of grass, chosen for its symbolic meaning. daffodils for hope, velvet roses for pride. The Duchess does not hide her strategic acumen beneath soft silks. She reveals that Henry craves intellectual stimulation more than empty flattery. When he speaks of music, ask thoughtful questions, she advises. When he discusses morality, share your insights. That is not challenging him, but traveling alongside him. Each lesson feels like an intimate concert where mind and beauty entwine. During subsequent evening banquets, you stand beside duchesses and princesses, listening to discussions ranging from Italian sonnets to philosophical treatises, all under golden candlelight and laurel-carved ceilings. Yet your dear friend Mary, who favours rose-scented tea, reminds you not to lose your compassion amid political gambits. It is that sincerity that sets you apart. Ultimately, you realize the court is not merely a lavish stage, but a complex tapestry of hearts and wills. Henry's restraint does not reveal weakness, but the grandeur of a ruler who listens and shares. And you, Elizabeth, are no longer the rustic girl stitching by twilight, but a courageous woman empowered to choose your destiny, both captivating and wise. The musical performances at court are far more than mere displays of artistry. They are covert symphonies of power and refinement, where every note and harmony forms the backdrop for subtle exchanges among the realm's elite. Under the flickering candlelight and the sweet resonance of the violins, you are not merely a spectator, you are enrolled in a silent masterclass on the psychology of absolute power, woven through melodies, rhythms, and the fleeting intersections of glances and gestures. Elizabeth Stafford, the Duchess of Norfolk, serves as your devoted instructor in this unique school. She seats you among the musicians, amid the mingled scents of beeswax and sandalwood, and while her deft hands embellish silk with intricate designs of vines and palace scrollwork, she explains, "The first principle is to make a powerful man feel intrigued, rather than simply more powerful in your presence." She emphasizes that Henry can command anyone to obey, but the one thing he cannot command is genuine curiosity, intellectual delight, or the sensation of being mentally stimulated. Observing the Duchess, you note how she artfully invites him to elaborate on his passion for music and philosophy. When Henry discusses harmonic theory, she does more than listen. She prompts him to deepen his explanations, posing subtle queries about compositional structure. As he touches upon theology, she gently asks open-ended questions, not to debate, but to make the dialogue a shared exploration. This approach not only sustains his interest, but also positions you as an equal partner, rather than a mere court accessory. The second lesson, Duchess Norfolk, imparts concerns the complex ecosystem of courtly relationships. "You are not merely entering into a personal bond with the king," she remarks while her needle weaves through golden threads that shimmer in the candlelight. "You are stepping into a network of alliances, undercurrents of rivalry, and dependencies that weave throughout the court and beyond its borders. Every word you speak, and every glance you exchange will be scrutinized, interpreted, and used as political capital." During afternoon tea on the palace terrace, you watch the Duchess converse with nobles and even a French ambassador. She maintains an independent poise, warm when necessary, yet resolute in never fully immersing herself in any faction. She skillfully creates alliances by sharing carefully curated information, speaking on matters of state with political precision, while never overtly tying herself to any party. At moments, she leans in to quietly inquire of a nearby guard, only to cause a flurry of whispers about her discreet support for reformist ideas, then immediately offers a gracious smile that leaves everyone at ease. From the Duchess, you learn to read the map of relationships. Who is on the rise, who is falling, who holds silent sway. You observe how she arranges seating at feasts, deciding who should sit next to whom to steer the flow of information. After each banquet, she highlights minute cues for you. An eyebrow raised by a minister, a restless shift by a prince, that only the perceptive can discern. Through these lessons, you not only master the art of captivating royal attention with intellect and character, but you also acquire the survival skills necessary to navigate the fragile web of courtly power, where every smile, every compliment, and every well-placed inquiry carries profound strategic weight. Every relationship at court resembles a vast chessboard where friendship is calculated by strategic advantage, not mere sentiment. Every handshake, every smile is decoded. Does it signal your power rising or falling? This transforms kindness into an art form balanced by absolute discretion, Generosity must be honed by deep awareness that not everyone who seeks your friendship has pure motives. The Duchess of Norfolk, your trusted guide, explains, "You must choose your allies carefully. Seek women whose fortunes do not depend on royal favor but on their character and competence. They are true allies, because their safety and success do not hinge on winning Henry's spotlight." She introduces you to Mary Boleyn, who astonishes by turning her affair with Henry into a respectable marriage. Mary not only secures her position but continues to thrive at court, holding insider knowledge that various factions covet without posing a threat to anyone. By contrast, Mary's sister, Anne Boleyn, defies every convention. She refuses the mistress's role, demanding Henry treat her as a wife rather than a fleeting pleasure. This bold strategy could elevate her to unprecedented heights or destroy her utterly. During a stroll through the riotous Tudor gardens, the Duchess confides, "Anne's path is destined for dramatic history. But you observe, do not emulate. She needs nerves of steel and luck beyond imagination to sustain that approach." Oi! Finally, the Duchess imparts the most crucial lesson. Learn to read Henry's moods as one reads a weather forecast. His temperament can shift from brilliant sunshine to biting frost and back again in an instant. Anticipating these shifts will not only secure the king's favour, but also protect you and your cherished allies from the fallout of royal displeasure. When Henry grows weary of political turmoil, the Duchess shows you how to offer gentle entertainment, not to trivialize his concerns, but to soothe his spirit. When he is energetic and combative, you match his enthusiasm, demonstrating harmony without ever overshadowing his masculine authority. When Henry's spirit darkens with sorrow or melancholy, your role transcends that of a mere radiant figure. You become his silent comfort. You understand this is no opportunity for self-glorification, but rather a chance to gently lift him from his gloom with subtle entertainments. Perhaps it is a soft musical interlude performed by the court's own musicians, a cleverly told witty tale from a visiting poet, or simply a cup of French rose tea steeped with fresh petals. Every detail is designed to soothe the emperor's heart without expecting praise or public acknowledgement. Yet the most precious lesson the Duchess of Norfolk imparts is not how to make Henry smile, but to understand both the power and the limits of your own position in this realm of influence. As Henry's favoured companion, you become a force whose impact transcends a mere personal bond. Your opinions carry weight with courtiers and nobles seeking imperial favour. A single nod of your consent can unlock career opportunities, while a carefully measured hesitation can place rivals on the back foot. To wield this power wisely, you learn to use your influence responsibly. You resist being pulled into open games of influence or overt coercion. Instead, you share insights and views cautiously, and only when truly necessary. When approached to champion a specific faction or individual, you weigh the greater good. What serves the kingdom best? What honours the emperor? And what preserves your integrity? The Duchess watches your maturation with the watchful eyes of a mentor who knows failure in this course can lead to dire consequences, far beyond a poor grade. This is not a game of feelings, she reminds you in a special lesson. True mastery of the court is in the finesse of your influence. She applauds your discipline, the ability to temper personal ambition so as to maintain an alluring reputation in the eyes of the emperor and the nobility. This quality, she says, is more precious than beauty, intellect, or passion. It is what transforms a fleeting star into a lasting beacon. Yet she also ensures you grasp the temporary nature of your current favour. Remember, she gently advises, the emperor's attention is like spring clouds, brief and ever-shifting. Do not rest secure merely because you enjoy favour today. Always plan for the moment when the light may wane. Armed with this understanding, you build a long-term strategy, nurturing relationships with genuine allies, accumulating resources in steadfast connections, and never dwelling solely in the glow of the present. This is how you become not only the most sought-after beauty at court, but also a respected power whose influence endures beyond the shifts of imperial favour. The women who survive the era of royal favour and continue to thrive are the architects of their own destinies. They do more than savour fleeting privileges. They skillfully weave networks, amass resources, and safeguard their honour through every tumult. The time His Majesty bestows upon you, the Duchess of Norfolk emphasises, should serve as a preparation for your entire life, not the summit after which all fades away. This curriculum unfolds against the lavish yet poetic backdrop of Greenwich. Your private apartment has been upgraded. Stained glass windows look out upon a moonlit winter garden, furnishings intricately carved by court artisans, and plush tapestries narrating Roman myths line the walls. Candlelight casts a warm golden glow across every corner, creating an atmosphere as intimate as a chapel, yet retaining regal dignity. Your household staff attends you with reverence, an homage traditionally reserved for princesses and duchesses. They place fresh French roses in silver vases, brew the finest teas, and have silk towels ready for every ceremonial hour. Every minute detail, from the silk table linens to the porcelain bowls holding scented water, conspires to produce a setting that any noble would deem a dream realized. Your wardrobe, too, expands with scores of velvets, silks, and imported brocades. Persian cobalt, shimmering Chinese silk, and hand-embroidered silver filigree. Each ensemble is selected for specific audiences, banquets, or seasonal festivities. Fur-lined cloaks keep you warm on rainy days, while burgundy French shawls accentuate your graceful elegance. Yet the most remarkable aspect of this new life is how natural it feels. You awaken amidst splendor with a serene spirit, not because you've attained the pinnacle, but because you understand your own worth more deeply. Each step you take down the marble corridors marks you not merely as a visiting lady of the court, but as living proof of self-authorship. The opulent rooms, the exquisite attire, the carefully choreographed rituals all serve as stage settings for your personal narrative, written in intelligence, discretion, and unwavering dignity. In just a few short weeks, you have become inseparable from court life, gliding down gilded corridors with the graceful confidence of one born into silk and velvet. Whenever you enter the ballroom or the library, the eyes of nobles and attendants fix upon you with respect and curiosity. Sometimes, you and Margaret step into the grand hall, its frescoed ceilings depicting victory scenes and sculpted reliefs of goddesses, and dive into discussions about Michelangelo's latest sculptures, or the recent trade negotiations with the Holy Roman Emperor. Over afternoon tea, you exchange insights with Elizabeth Stafford, Duchess of Norfolk, on the nature of power. Knowledge is the weapon, yet charm and goodwill are equally indispensable. When the newly decreed taxes are broached, you offer thoughtful assessments of their impact on London merchants and their loyalty to the Crown. Each of your remarks is heard as if delivered from a podium, the crystal teacups on nearby tables vibrating softly in the ensuing silence. At private banquets with the king, you don not only your sapphire blue gown trimmed in Paduan lace, but also the poise and wisdom you've honed. You have learned how to offer genuine praise, not hollow flattery, but acknowledgement of the strategic decisions he has made, such as strengthening alliances with France or deftly handling internal councils. Your articulate diplomacy draws the admiration of counsellors like the Duke of Suffolk. Beyond the formal ceremonies, you and a coterie of noble women gather in a hidden tea room, candlelight dancing upon emerald porcelain and silk tablecloths. There, the conversation turns to future plans. Which prestigious marriage might secure your family's fortunes next, or whether a discreet courtship with a Spanish diplomat could expand your influence. Every decision is weighed with utmost care, for a single misstep could alter the destiny of entire dynasties. You are not merely learning to be a royal mistress, you are redefining what that role can be. What do you think of the Duchess of Norfolk's subtle strategy? Will you choose the careful path of Elizabeth Stafford, steady and sure, or dare to gamble, as Anne Boleyn did, betting on bold opportunity? Share your views in the comments. Every perspective adds depth to how we approach seemingly impossible choices. 6 months have passed since you were formally recognized as a royal favorite, and you have learned to read the court's shifting rhythms. King Henry's favor for you ebbs and flows like the tide, governed by mysteries known only to the heavens. Yet, rather than cold calculation, you see it as a living process. Attraction blooms, then deepens into an intellectual fascination, and finally settles into a warm, enduring affection that can last for years if carefully nurtured. With skill and discernment, you are weaving a bond based not solely on beauty but on respect, intelligence, and nuanced engagement. This is not the tale of a starry-eyed paramour adrift. It is the journey of a woman who uses her very self to expand the boundaries of grace and power within the royal court. Following Elizabeth Stafford's sage advice, you gradually realize that the key to maintaining Henry's favor is not to remain frozen at the height of passionate intensity, but to evolve alongside him as an intellectual and emotional companion. She teaches you to watch every gesture, every glance of the king, to understand that he treasures more than fleeting brilliance. He seeks growth and shared discovery. One golden afternoon in the wild rose garden beside the palace, Elizabeth Stafford leads you along a dew-kissed marble pathway. She recounts tales of past royal favourites who relied solely on their beauty and saw their influence quickly fade. Henry desires evolution, not eternal flames, she murmurs, gently brushing a white rose petal. He wants a woman who can innovate, who challenges him intellectually, who explores the world at his side. In the days that follow, you immerse yourself in confidential meetings on foreign policy. When the Polish ambassadors present their plan for a Habsburg alliance, Henry invites your input. You discuss the long-term economic impacts, suggesting minor amendments that safeguard the interests of the Hanseatic League. Your blend of economic insight and political acumen earns Henry's approving nod. One evening, in the hushed privacy of his study, Henry opens a gift box of rare pearls and asks your opinion on the pearl's symbolism of lunar sovereignty. You recount the archaeological origins of pearls, the legend of Aphrodite rising from the sea, and draw parallels to the strategy of awakening inspiration among court circles. Henry smiles, fixes you with his gaze, and admits that no one has ever understood him as you do. The atmosphere at banquet dinners shifts as well. While a harpsichord serenades the guests, you pour Henry a glass of sauterne and discuss the impact of a failed vintage on the royal treasury. At the same time, the musicians prepare two arias, Italian and French. You propose a tempo adjustment to match the evening's more relaxed mood, earning appreciative applause from the courtiers. With each gathering, Henry's confidence in you deepens. He begins inviting you to a small council table where advisors discuss ecclesiastical reform. As they debate church rights versus royal prerogative, you offer your perspective. A transparent church amplifies the crown's prestige, for the people will see faith preserved not through imposition, but through sincerity. Thomas Cromwell takes note, and you become indispensable in shaping religious policy. Through every step forward, you experience firsthand that friendship, mutual respect, and genuine dialogue form the foundation of a lasting relationship. Far beyond initial infatuation, you and Henry are building a spiritual alliance, one of creative inspiration, shared conviction, and reciprocal responsibility that unites two powerful souls. You are not merely the king's mistress, but his trusted companion on this journey of intellect and heart. Most strikingly, Henry began involving you in pursuits entirely divorced from romance or physical allure, strategic, technical, and educational matters demanding your counsel. One afternoon, he led you onto the newly finished Great Hall floor, where royal architects were debating the West Wing extension's blueprints. Waning sunlight poured through stained glass panes, illuminating ornate plaster cornices and pale marble columns. Henry paused before the wooden model, turned to you and asked, "Point out where to place the tessellated frieze that will narrate the glory of our reign." You analyzed the golden ratio in the mosaic design, explaining how seasonal light would shift gently across it, imparting solemn grandeur to the royal palace. His appreciation extended beyond architecture to interior artistry. Before the Aubusson tapestries were hung, you accompanied him in selecting patterns and hues, choosing between the deep garnet red of Agincourt or malachite blue, evoking Roman imperial splendor. Each gold-threaded motif was weighed carefully against the new crystal chandeliers, and you did not hesitate to suggest a slight adjustment, causing his discerning eyes to sparkle with approval. Your influence even reached the education of Prince Henry Fitzroy, his beloved, though illegitimate son. In the cozy study, lined with ancient tomes, Henry placed before you the prince's academic dossier: Egyptian mathematics, Roman history, and Asian geography. He inquired which tutor might best instruct the boy, not just imparting knowledge, but shaping him in royal decorum, etiquette, diplomatic language, and a sense of duty toward his future subjects. You proposed a short list of eminent scholars, including a Latin professor from Padua, prompting Henry to dispatch an envoy with an immediate invitation. This expansion of duties brought both privilege and challenge. Courtiers who once viewed you as mere embellishment now recognized your real clout. In a corner of the council chamber, the The Duke of Norfolk whispered with the treasurer about securing your endorsement on the fortress budget. Down the hallway, the Spanish delegation sought your advice on honorary gifts designed to curry favor with the English crown. Even religious figures, from humble parish priests to venerable theologians, sought you out as a beacon of hope. They confided in you about liturgical reforms, hoping your support would help them resist heavy-handed decrees. Attentive and analytical, you deftly balanced church and crown interests before relaying their concerns in a way that preserved both. The greatest peril did not lie in Henry's jealousy, for he seemed genuinely proud to see your influence acknowledged, but in the temptation to overestimate your own power. You remembered that every privilege hinged entirely on his personal affection and esteem. Agnes, drawing on years alongside former royal favourites, taught you to read subtle signals. When a tea invitation masked a power play or a consultation disguised political pressure, armed with these lessons, you could gracefully withdraw from potentially perilous intrigue. Gradually, the king's visits to your chambers grew less frequent yet far more meaningful. He would stay overnight, debating border defense strategies over evening port by candlelight in the study's hush. In that intimate atmosphere, conversations lengthened, confessions deepened. A robust, intellectual and political alliance took root. You had become more than a cherished companion. You were Henry VIII's indispensable partner in governance, his true confidant. More importantly, Henry began speaking of your future in terms that suggested a long-term plan rather than a temporary arrangement. One warm afternoon, he guided you along a gilded corridor into his private study, a cozy chamber lined with towering bookshelves and soft Persian rugs underfoot. Turning to you with earnest eyes, he confessed, "I wish to know where you will be when you are no longer occupied by feasts and formal ceremonies." He proceeded to outline suitable estates for your retirement, from the vibrant hydrangea gardens by the Avon River to a honey-coloured stone manor nestled within the Sussex oakwood. He described how lavender fields beside a carp pond would soothe your spirit, even promising to send skilled gardeners to sculpt bonsai trees he had recently acquired on a diplomatic mission to Japan. Not stopping there, Henry broached the subject of marriage prospects. Not a fleeting union to appease the court, but a formal alliance that would secure your status and dignity. He listed 3 esteemed noble families, the Duke of Norfolk, the Earl of Pembroke, and the Viscount Salisbury, each possessing modest lands, but wielding enough influence to offer you a steadfast refuge. He asked for your preference: a seaside castle to hear the waves each night, or an elegant town mansion with a tea garden on the veranda. For the first time, you felt unsettled. Speaking of retirement seemed tantamount to their relationship's imminent end. Yet the Duchess of Norfolk, always by your side, gently grasped your hand and whispered, "Only the indifferent cast aside a lover and refuse to plan her future." His Majesty's efforts to chart your long road ahead prove he cherishes you above all else. Your security became even clearer when Anne Boleyn's audacious campaign to win the king's attention began sowing discord at court. Rather than shifting his gaze toward that showy cousin, Henry appeared to recoil from her pageantry, spending more time confiding in you instead. Amid the flicker of candles in the late-night dining hall, he called you a tranquil refuge amid the storm of court life. You realized you were no longer the novel gem fueling his curiosity, but a dependable companion, a steadfast anchor returning him to his true self, unburdened by the cloak of power. This was a position, if carefully maintained, that promised both security and enduring influence. Of course, the rivalry with Anne Boleyn persisted. She constantly debuted new gowns and flattery to catch the monarch's eye. Yet your poise and prudence showed Henry that your steadiness, respect, and intelligence were far more valuable than any flamboyant display. Now, each quiet moment with him was charged with a deeper question. Could the bond of genuine friendship and mutual admiration you were forging outlast the fleeting allure that Anne symbolized? As your sphere of influence grew, you understood that you were no longer merely a royal paramour, but a political actor. Each word you spoke had the power to shape an entire dynasty. When Henry invited you to sit down by the flickering sapphire wine glasses on a quiet evening, he gently placed before you a new composition by the young court musician Thomas Greville. At first, you thought you were simply sharing your musical passion, praising the opening melody as a harp's echo amidst the oak woods, and admiring how Thomas intertwined unexpected chords with the soft whisper of a flute. Before long, you learned that Thomas had received a lavish royal commission, an amount substantial enough to sustain him for years, rivaling or even surpassing the annual income of many earls. It was your offhand compliment, carried by the court conductor into Henry's hearing, that sparked the beginning of Thomas's illustrious career. He became the most sought-after composer, his works ushering in a new musical movement and paving the way for court concerts that would define English culture for generations to come. This influence extended beyond music. As you walked with Henry along the stone pathways of the palace's western gardens, you overheard courtiers debating trade taxes, interlaced with anecdotes about Henry's recent diplomatic mission to France. You remarked, "Such incisive rhetoric reminds me of philosophical dramas on the Parisian stage." Within weeks, the nobles you mentioned found themselves summoned to private audiences, given platforms to showcase their oratory talents before Henry and his ministers breakthrough opportunities for advancement in the court. Similarly, when you expressed curiosity about the wave of new religious thinking flowing into England from the continent, Henry recognized a mind ever thirsty for knowledge. You posed questions about the Roman Mass rites, comparing its solemn chants to the single-voice hymns of the reformers in Geneva. You analyzed doctrines such as salvation by faith alone, and the Church as an egalitarian community, with such earnest insight that all who listened were impressed. Your informed commentary prompted Henry to invite prominent scholars and theologians from Paris, Geneva, and Wittenberg. What began as private dialogues between the two of you soon evolved into genuine reform forums, Anglican bishops and Protestant preachers debating in your presence, and new liturgical texts composed specifically for the Greenwich chapel, all commissioned because Henry valued your perceptive viewpoints. From your casual praise to your prioritized presence at critical meetings, your political influence reached far beyond etiquette and attire. Each nuanced observation was noted and translated into action. Artistic terms or theological insights, every subtle detail helped shape the kingdom's culture and policy. You came to understand that even without seeking power, a single sincere voice, armed with deep understanding, could redirect the course of an entire dynasty. Thomas Wolsey, Henry's principal secretary, whose political survival has long depended on accurately reading the tides of royal favour, suddenly appeared more approachable than ever as he approached you in the grand hall that bright morning. He wore his customary dark robes embroidered with the royal insignia, eyes gleaming like a veteran who has spent decades standing behind the throne. Yet, unlike his usual reserve, Wolsey now offered you a small silver lion's pin, a token symbolizing trust and alliance, before gently inquiring, "Might I have your thoughts on this matter?" At first, his conversation seemed mere courtly pleasantry. He spoke of dispatches arriving from the Venetian embassy, described the Midlands harvest still struggling after heavy snowfall. But when you responded with shrewd observations on how weather fluctuations impacted barley prices and the ripple effects on the grain tax policy, Wolsey's gaze shifted from polite courtesy to earnest seriousness. He smiled and said, "Exactly the insight we need, so His Majesty can grasp the practical consequences." Hi, from chance encounters in the corridors to cozy afternoon teas by the hearth, Wolsey gradually invited you to weigh in on proposals for colonial tariffs and maritime revenue schemes. He provided you with handwritten appendices, asking you to highlight where the wording was too technical or where a heartfelt comment might help the king appreciate the burdens of farmers and merchants alike. Unlike those who sought to trade favours by urging you to back one faction or criticise another, Wolsey deftly supplied you with privy council briefs, diplomatic correspondence, and insider accounts of baronial debates without any pressure. He believed that your voice, one the king genuinely listened to, would persuade more effectively than any overt solicitation. Meanwhile, Thomas Howard, Duke of Norfolk, opted for a different approach, leading you through the labyrinth of power during strolls in the spring orchard. He presented you with a cobalt-glazed cup gifted from a former French ambassador and explained in detail the intricate ties between the Percy and Talbot houses entwined with royal alliances. Norfolk not only recounted trade dealings with Denmark, but also warned of lurking dangers posed by Swedish merchant fleets gathering offshore. Through each of these teaching moments, amidst the scent of roses and the murmur of the stream, you came to realize that court politics is not mere theory but an art of communication, a stage where every word carries profound significance. Wolsey and Norfolk, each in his own style, handed you the keys to the most secretive corridors, the right to be consulted, the power to shape national destiny, and you, armed with the unexpected wisdom of a country girl, found yourself at the center of a silent game of influence, where victory is often measured by the subtle turn of a phrase on an invitation to counsel. Most importantly, the Duke of Norfolk guided you to grasp your unique station within these intricate webs of power. You are not merely His Majesty's favourite, he told you, in a calm, resonant voice during an afternoon tea beneath the magnolia boughs, but a political asset whose worth lies in your ability to reflect his authority rather than eclipse it. He led you along the marble-floored corridor, lined with ancestral portraits, whose gazes seemed to appraise each step you took. Norfolk explained that every gesture, from the precise curtsy you offered guests to the deft way you responded, became a declaration of the king's humility or might. They watch from every European court, he continued, as the two of you paused before a Tudor window overlooking the rose garden. They're appraising England's attitude toward a woman's role in statecraft and His Majesty's aspirations for the realm's image. Norfolk recounted the Parisian soirée, where the French ambassador's wife discreetly invited senior courtiers to discuss forging alliances through marriage, using the guise of consulting on English courtly customs. As the trumpets heralded supper in the Great Hall, Norfolk wove tales of diplomatic subtext. Inquiries after the king's health that in reality sought opinions on newly published volumes, and the gift of a classical painting merely to gauge London's aesthetic leanings. He pointed out every subtle maneuver, how you politely declined requests for off-the-record political commentary, and how you praised a Chinese porcelain cup as homage to foreign artistry without alienating your countrymen. Finally, Norfolk stroked his moustache and said, "To manage these external overtures, you must be like a master weaver. Know when to pull taut, when to let go. Be wary of honeyed offers delicate pastries that leave a bitter aftertaste for His Majesty." He emphasized that your success depended not only on charm, but on the steadfastness to separate personal gain from England's destiny. As night fell, you carried Norfolk's counsel in your heart, the mind of a strategist undaunted by complexity, finding beauty in the refined dance of power. You were no longer merely a courtly rose at the throne's side, but a discreet diplomat, every smile, every whispered word contributing to the flourishing story of the kingdom. Henry's marriage to Queen Catherine of Aragon, though hailed as a formidable political alliance, yielded no male heir to secure the Tudor succession. Rumours of theological implications, suggesting that childlessness might be a divine warning, spread through scholarly libraries and the royal courts. Amidst the grandeur of palace halls and lush-walled gardens, leading theologians quoted Mosaic law and debated whether Scripture allowed a man to wed a woman who had borne brothers' children. Oh, your profound interest in reformist theology, stoked by Henry's own enthusiasm for serious religious debate, placed you squarely at the centre of increasingly heated discussions. You soon realised that, in the Tudor court, politics and doctrine were inseparable. Every question of faith felt like walking on a razor's edge, capable of securing glory or inviting ruin. In the marble-panelled council chamber, you listened as renowned divines argued from Leviticus and Deuteronomy, meticulously recording each point from biblical citations to Augustine's writings. Yet when invited to speak, you refrained from choosing sides. Instead, you deftly posed questions about the sacred nature of marriage covenants and the meaning of an everlasting bond in light of worldly power. That approach astonished many. Rather than align with one faction, you steered the conversation toward a shared quest for resolution honoring both royal prerogative and divine law. Your courage did not go unnoticed, for you showed a rare willingness to weigh both political and spiritual consequences before offering any declaration. One afternoon, as late sunlight filtered through stained glass, Henry summoned you to his private study. He gently asked your views on petitioning the Pope for a theological dispensation to end his marriage to Catherine. You replied with calm resolve, "Your Majesty, it is vital not only to address the immediate political need, but also to safeguard your realm's deep religious convictions in perpetuity." Your words prompted Henry to nod thoughtfully, realizing you grasped more than most the long-term repercussions of royal divorce, not merely a schism with Rome, but a signal that England might stand outside celestial law. He showed genuine respect, for few dared speak with such strategic and moral clarity. From that moment, you became more than a confidant sought for solace. You emerged as his discreet advisor, guiding the king through the delicate balance of political ambition and religious fidelity. Every theological discussion now carried diplomatic weight, Each phrase you chose could affect relations with Rome and England's standing among European monarchs. You felt an exhilarating sense of purpose in engaging with matters of national import, roles rarely afforded to women beyond courtly ceremony. Yet you also recognized the immense responsibility behind that intellectual power. Every word, every decision, could spark theological upheaval or political unrest. In the Tudor world of high stakes and hidden perils, you resolved to wield knowledge as your weapon, steering the vessel of monarchy through the turbulent seas of faith and power. It was a delicate balance that required not only maintaining courtly grace, but also the ability to anticipate every move within the royal circle. You learned to conduct each gesture and word as if you were the maestro of a subtle symphony where power and emotion intertwined. Whenever Henry invited you into the private study panelled in ebony wood, the flickering candlelight reflecting off leather wall coverings, you realized your conversations had moved far beyond mere flattery or admiration. Now they delved into the intricate weights of foreign policy, questions about the tariffs imposed on Venetian merchants, and his hushed concerns over how best to raise Prince Henry Fitzroy to secure England's future. 18 months after your first steps into this lavish yet treacherous world, the initial fervour had softened into a deep, enduring harmony. You and Henry no longer exchanged perfumed kisses alone, but lingered gazes as he pondered new legal drafts from Parliament. Your presence in that study ceased to be mere ornamentation. You became an indispensable element shaping a king's decisions. Your contemplative strolls around Kensington's Lotus Pond evolved from a respite from the Grand Hall's smoke to secret meetings of souls. There, you listened to his heavy sighs as he weighed a potential marital pact with the King of France. Birds chirped softly among willow branches, reminding you that power ultimately remains a chain of favours and growing responsibilities. You drifted tiny goose-egg shells across the water's surface, a metaphor for emerging beliefs, and together discussed the Scottish border or the grain ship threatened by Ottoman corsairs. On foggy afternoons, seated by an ivory-inlaid writing desk, your hands trembling as you flipped through your diary, Henry would take your hand and confess how much he valued your clarity of thought. He admitted feeling adrift among advisers, whose counsel often sprang from office rather than heart. You responded by recounting a French scholar's remark, "Power flows like a river. Only the framework of knowledge can shape its course." He smiled then, eyes gleaming with trust. Yet the court was not entirely serene. Rumours swirled about Anne Boleyn's bold approach, once a childhood companion, now defiantly refusing the trappings of Mistress to demand recognition as wife, sending ripples through London's salons. In confidential councils with his most trusted ministers, Henry would narrow his eyes at her name. Some lauded her as a heroine championing personal freedom. Others warned of the perilous political fallout. You understood Anne as more than a rival in beauty or influence. Her audacity threatened to unsettle the very machinery of court. That made your counsel all the more critical. Each word of caution, each tactical analysis reinforced Henry's confidence in you, his companion not only in romance, but through every stormy turn of England's monarchy. Foreign ambassadors from Paris, Rome, Vienna, and even the far-flung reaches of the Ottoman Empire were dispatching meticulous dispatches back to their sovereigns, chronicling every gesture and word of Anne Boleyn. They appended commentary from their scholars and statesmen, some heralding her bold refusal of mistressly status to demand marriage as a daring gambit sure to triumph, others warning of disaster when a king's authority is so brazenly challenged. Yet the most remarkable detail among all these reports was how Henry, rather than bristle or grow jealous, seemed to deepen his appreciation for the very different qualities you offered. When Anne stormed the great hall with fiery passion, you stood calm and patient like dawn mist on rose petals. Word was that Anne quickened Henry's pulse with drama and surprise, whereas you offered him a soothing breath like a monarch finding stillness amid the storm. In private conversations he confessed needing that balance, half for ambition, half for tranquility. One late afternoon, you and Elizabeth Stafford strolled along the marble corridor, candlelight flickering through ebony-framed windows. She paused before a mural depicting a coronation, her finger tracing the gleaming gold lines. "Consider this," she said. "Anne is the strong wind. You are the gentle river, both are needed." The king discovers he cannot rely on a single hue in the court's tapestry. Indeed, Henry's emotions had begun to split distinctly, composing brief poems that hailed you as the royal dawn while gifting Anne passionate serenades. Neither woman was diminished instead. Each brought contrasting yet complementary moods to his soul. This symbiosis showed in his royal calendar. Days of grand Italian orchestral festivals in Anne's honour, followed by quiet afternoons walking the gardens and reading with you, accompanied only by bird song and the rustle of ancient tomes in the royal library. Even when planning your future, Henry invited your counsel. An estate in Lincolnshire, where green fields stretch without end, and deer wander past, might it offer you calm after so many ceremonial months? He spoke of young nobles, such as the Earl of Dorset, your former Cambridge peer, known for his intellect, humility and character, befitting a lifelong partner at court. His plans extended further, discussing how to preserve your honour, perhaps with a solemn procession upon your formal withdrawal from the court stage, or building a private library on your lands, so you might continue correspondence with Europe's brightest minds. All topics were addressed earnestly, underscoring that he regarded this connection as one of life's most significant journeys regardless of its ultimate conclusion. Within you blossomed a firm conviction. Rather than overshadowed, you and Anne had become the two splendid hues that illuminated the Tudor realm. Anne was the bold beacon, you the soft candle releasing gentle fragrance. And it was precisely that harmony that taught Henry not only the value of love, but also that a broad heart can encompass all of a court's tempests. Those initial conversations about your future made your heart skip. Planning for retirement, that cold phrase seemed to signal that he was about to cast you aside like an old gown, a woman no longer needed. Yet Henry's demeanour whenever he broached the subject was entirely different. His thoughtful gaze lacked any hint of indifference. Instead, it shone with genuine concern for your long-term welfare, expressing a wish for you to have a peaceful home once you were no longer the king's consort, and even offering to use his influence to secure you a spacious estate or enough wealth to live independently. When courtiers whispered calculations of how long until Anne Boleyn might replace you, Henry responded by spending even more private time with you, as if seeking the sanctuary of calm amid the emotional storm Anne's ambitions had unleashed. He confided that amidst the court's ebb and flow, your intellectual companionship, those quiet, profound conversations free of drama, was exactly what he needed most. Agnes, who had witnessed countless rises and falls of royal favour, marvelled at your adaptability. One candlelit morning, as she carefully arranged each strand of your hair, she remarked how rare it is for someone to maintain enduring influence. Most of the king's favourites burn out under pressure, or are forgotten once his interest wanes. Yet you learned to grow in harmony with his heartbeat. You not only soothed the storms, but fortified him with your deep insights, earning his esteem not just as a passing muse, but as an indispensable confidant. The clearest proof of your secure position came when Henry unexpectedly asked you to plan a birthday celebration for Anne Boleyn. Entrusting such a delicate yet vital task to you, his supposed rival, demonstrated that he did not view you as competition, but rather as a trusted partner with refined taste. You were given authority from selecting the floral motifs for the banquet hall to arranging Italian pastries so every detail would radiate celebration for the woman he adored. As you helped him review guest lists and choose courtly music for the late-night soiree, Henry listened to every suggestion with affectionate eyes. You understood that with each decision you made, you were not only pleasing him but also reaffirming your unshakable place. You were the one he turned to for both political responsibility and everyday moments. And in that moment, you realized you had become an indispensable part of court life, where influence and affection intertwined to forge an unbreakable alliance. Your initial reaction to the request to organize Anne Boleyn's birthday celebration revealed just how much intellectual maturity and subtlety you had cultivated during your months among the Tudor court's silks and velvets. Instead of feeling jealous or intimidated by Anne's influence, you recognized this as an opportunity to showcase your skill at weaving together artistic vision and an understanding of human nature, qualities you had honed under the mentorship of Agnes and the Duchess. You approached the creative process with excitement, eyes alight much like they were when you first discovered the Royal Library's trove of poetic manuscripts and stage sketches. You began by meeting with the court's most refined musicians, those who had performed in intimate palace salons or noble residences. In the vaulted golden-hued hall, where lute strings reverberated against hunting-themed reliefs, you sat with the maestro, discussing melodies that would be at once romantic and suitably grand for honouring the guest of honour. You requested a blend of the pure tones of a recorder, evoking an autumnal fanfare with a brief ceremonial prelude to accompany the cake cutting, ensuring each guest's heartbeat matched the music's emotional cadence. Next, you summoned the court portraitist to survey Anne's attire, from the silvery moonlit drapery of her gown to the intricate gathers at her sleeves. In the palace's back garden, under the soft dawn light, you and the painter chose floral arrangements. Sprigs of French yellow roses, Italian purple larkspur, and brilliant green bay leaves from the sun garden. You attended to every detail, tilting blossoms to accentuate the grace of Anne's hands, and placing clusters near candlelight so their petals shimmered like stars in the flicker. Not content with mere aesthetics, you consulted candidly with Anne's aides about her personal tastes and private routines, her passion for romantic verse, reading morose poems by candlelight, and her fondness for listening to music at twilight, when the Thames gleamed beneath the moon. With these insights, you proposed a short dramatic piece by the royal troupe, transforming a love poem into a viol-accompanied dance, moving Anne to tears as she saw her own story portrayed. In the decoration chambers, where candlelight danced on ebony mirrors, you and the goldsmith discussed the line work for the cake's ornate frame. Tudor scrolls intertwined with the sunburst emblem of Henry, symbolizing the king's favor. You requested a delicate sculpted sparrow, the bird Anne cherished since childhood, perched atop the confection, ensuring her surprise and delight. As the day of the feast approached, you stood in the antechamber, feeling leaves rustle underfoot, and a southeast breeze, scented with cinnamon and orange, drift by. Watching the retinue adjust candles and roll out crimson velvet as if preparing for a grand drama, you realized this endeavor was no mere task. It had become a bridge between two women, Anne and you, each on her own path, yet sharing the singular experience of capturing the attention of Europe's most powerful monarch. When the celebration unfolded in radiant triumph, applause echoing, and Anne's joyous laughter filling the hall, Henry turned to you with gratitude in his eyes. This achievement proved that your relationship with the king had transcended the initial bounds of romance, evolving into a steadfast alliance of artistry and spirit far more enduring than any passing infatuation. A genuine friendship blossomed between two intelligent souls who learned to trust and lean on one another. As you stood at the edge of the gallery watching Henry and Anne glide through the final waltz of the evening, no searing jealousy gripped your heart as you had feared. Instead, a profound sense of contentment washed over you. You smiled at the sight of Anne resting her head on the king's shoulder, her golden hair shimmering like spun silk in the candlelight, while Henry cradled her hand with tender reverence. In that fleeting moment, you realized you had crafted something extraordinary, not merely a dance, but an authentic union of two kindred minds. Before the ball began, you had spent hours devising the interplay of the grand hall and the meticulously hung lanterns crafted by royal goldsmiths. Each gilded cage floated in mid-air, casting warm pools of light that awakened the Tudor-carved walls. You selected royal blue velvet chairs, tones that spotlighted Anne's ivory gown while harmonizing with the orchid-patterned tapestry laid upon the marble floor. When the dance floor opened, the harpsichord's delicate chords intertwined with the violin's rich strains, and you watched as your emotional tableau unfolded, music guiding every step, light softly beckoning. Attire à glow. You observed their movements. Anne's silk dress swirling like a moonlit shimmer, Henry's bow lowering with genteel grace, their eyes meeting in a silent vow. You knew you were more than a spectator. You were the architect of this enchantment. Through discreet curation of every element, from the lively opening melody, interspersed with the ceremonial prelude, to the choice of French rose-scented candles that lured guests onward, you bolstered their joy. This subtlety forged a lasting power, one beyond Henry's solitary possession, extending an invitation into a serene realm where intellect and emotion coexisted. In the days that followed the ball, you still sensed the gentle breeze carrying candle fragrance through the palace corridors, and you occasionally caught the faint echo of their waltz drifting from distant chambers. Henry would visit the Solar, not to declare affection, but to discuss forthcoming manuscripts or plan the spring festival alongside you. Anne sent playful notes in return, thanking you for the greatest gift, not the cake, but a night brimming with memories. The most remarkable discovery was the enduring power you had cultivated, one that transcended transient infatuation. Your intelligence and sincerity became indispensable, drawing both Henry and Anne to seek you out as a steadfast anchor. In the months ahead, court tensions might flare anew, yet you remained serene, for your strength did not rest on fleeting romance, but on the depth of your heart and the bonds you nurtured. Your response to these confidences reveals how many months spent among candlelight and private debates have forged you into a master of subtle influence, one wielded through intellect rather than power or possession. Rather than attempting to persuade Henry to turn away from Anne, a venture almost certain to fail given his fervent passion, you choose a more artful path, posing illuminating questions that invite him to consider the consequences of every decision without uttering a single reproach. That day, in the hushed tranquility of the solar lined with leather-bound tomes, you handed Henry manuscripts exploring the nexus of ceremony and faith. When he furrowed his brow at the theological complexities surrounding his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, you deftly steered the conversation. What do you make of the moment when the ritual reaffirms your vow, Your Majesty? Can the symbolic power mend the fractures of the heart? Never outright contradicting, you skillfully opened doors into unexplored realms, assuring Henry that he was not alone in his doubts. With each question, he trusted more deeply that a dialogue with you was not an interrogation but a shared pilgrimage for ancient answers. Meanwhile, beyond the stone corridors, courtiers whispered among themselves, "She's not only beautiful, she's razor-sharp." Faces that once regarded you as mere adornment began to recognize the genuine intellect in every carefully chosen word. Even newly arrived ministers discreetly sought private audience, not to lobby for factions, but to learn from your explanations of the delicate interplay between reason and emotion at court. Through such modest exchanges, your reputation spread far beyond the marble halls. Foreign scholars raced to present their Latin treatises for your elucidation, while envoys quietly inquired about your perspective on European alliances. They believed that, through you, they might glimpse the deepest currents within Henry's mind, where public authority is but a thin veneer over a soul longing to be heard rather than conquered. In this context, you realized true power resides not in royal splendor, but in the ability to listen, to question, and to respond with incisive thought. You transformed yourself into an intellectual companion, one who inspires the monarch to reflection, rather than merely a courtly beauty to admire. And that is your greatest accomplishment, forging a lasting influence that transcends every political shift, a testament to how intellect and character can create a silent yet formidable power. Madame Isabelle de Chanteloup, the French ambassador's wife, became especially cordial after an introduction by Lady Mary Carey. During an afternoon tea in the Versailles-like townhouse nestled in London, she did more than discuss the weather politely. She listened intently to every insight you offered about the royal psyche. She recognized that your deep understanding of how Henry balances passion with duty could help Paris avert disaster if England truly split from Rome. Rather than treating you as a covert agent, Madame Isabelle engaged you as an intellectual peer. Beneath the ornate bas-reliefs of Ceres, the goddess of grain, she openly discussed international affairs, rumors circulating in the Mediterranean, the Pope's stern gaze, and the delicate calculations France must make to preserve peace. You shared precise analyses. How might Henry respond if the Pope imposed an interdict? How would that decision affect treaties with Spain? Your accurate assessments enabled her to make invaluable diplomatic suggestions. Upon her return to Paris, her dispatches praising Madame Blanc's insight surpassing that of veteran envoys captured attention at the Tuileries. In turn, she generously shared with you inside correspondence, strategic intelligence about the upcoming council, and glimpses into French noble factions information you had rarely accessed. At the same time, Henry's relationship with Anne Boleyn evolved. The fateful birthday banquet at Hampton Court, for which you collaborated on the courtly dance performance, proved pivotal. For the first time, Henry and Anne sat beside you under crystal lights, not merely as patron and favourite, but as intellectual companions. Anne, her chestnut hair gleaming, would pose bold questions. What do you think of the Augsburg religious conciliation? Henry listened raptly, and you noticed his respectful gaze toward Anne growing stronger each time she spoke. Remarkably, Anne did not regard you as a rival. Instead, she sought your counsel on managing Henry's attention, how to prevent his secret nocturnal visits or balance revelry with crucial audiences. Through these conversations, you gained deeper insight into both her ambition to become a legitimate queen and the peril it entailed, as many predecessors had fallen victim to similar desires. You realized the fragility of that political balance. One misstep could cost reputation or life. Your composure and tact became ever more vital. Meanwhile, your friendship with Madame Isabel provided an international perspective, while your rapport with Anne taught you how to maintain loyalty without losing autonomy. The subtle signals you've learned from these two remarkable women, one from the diplomatic elite, the other from the glittering court, are forging an expansive network of influence. Amid the currents of European politics, you are no longer merely the royal favourite but also a silent counsellor, safeguarding both England's stability and your own destiny from unseen snares. Your blossoming friendship with Anne Boleyn gradually opened up an entirely new role for you, the stabiliser of her emotional storms. Picture an early evening in Hampton Court's gardens, where the sunset glints off the reflecting pool, and Anne suddenly grows tense, worried that Henry's affection is overwhelming. She curls into a crimson velvet armchair, fingers twisting her sleeve, her eyes shining with anxiety. You gently take a seat beside her, pour a cup of rose-scented tea imported from France, and share soothing tales of Gloucestershire countryside. How a half-open window can calm the soul. Anne asks for your help in reconciling with certain nobles who have grown distant, and with your deft suggestions perhaps gifting them a volume of poetry or inviting them for a stroll through the maze, you restore her equilibrium. Each time Anne's demands threaten to push Henry beyond his patience, say, expecting him to appear for her at a moment's notice. Your gentle interventions avert dramatic confrontations. You counsel her to pen a softly worded note. Grant me a moment of quiet, rather than a direct summons, allowing longing to flourish in his heart. This approach not only preserves her affection, but also deepens Henry's appreciation for her tact. It is thanks to this peacekeeper role that your influence has extended far beyond your private relationship with the king. At intimate gatherings, both Henry and Anne increasingly turn to you as an unofficial advisor. What say you? Henry asks when he's mulling over a state decision, or do you think gentleness befits Eleanor of Suffolk? When Anne plans a banquet. Your ability to perceive subtle emotional currents and manage complex relationships has become a precious asset, helping to maintain both the kingdom's stability and your own future. Remarkably, this evolution has felt entirely natural. Rather than clinging to the ephemeral role of royal favourite, you discovered new sources of power, the capacity to foster harmony, to build alliances, and to create enduring influence. This became especially evident as Christmas approaches. The palace is draped in fresh fir garlands, scented candles are lit along every corridor, and the choir rehearses carols that echo beneath vaulted ceilings. For the first time, you prepare not with anxious thoughts of impressing Henry, but with genuine excitement for the festivities, where you plan to send peaceful messages through thoughtful gifts and arrange seating so every rank feels welcomed and warm. As the bells ring out, you realize you stand differently than on the day you first arrived at court. No longer merely a favoured beauty, but one of the silent pillars holding everything together. Your enduring power lies not in fleeting allure or transient favour, but in emotional intelligence, diplomatic skill, and a heartfelt desire to knit connections. And on this Christmas Eve, you will shine in your own way, not simply as a lady beside the throne, but as a bridge between hearts and power, guiding the season toward hope and peace. Your security is no longer tied to vying for Henry's exclusive romantic attention, nor does your standing require fierce competition with other court ladies for his notice. Instead, in just 18 months, you have quietly carved out a vital place within the royal power ecosystem, an arena where your intellect is valued, your discretion rewarded, and your subtle yet indispensable contributions enrich every grand event. Picture the atmosphere as your second Christmas at Greenwich approaches. Corridors awash in scented candlelight intermingled with the crisp aroma of fresh fir boughs, tapestries woven with golden threads sparkling beneath crystal chandeliers, and a choir perched high above echoing ancient carols across vaulted ceilings. As dignitaries from across Europe stream through the palace gates, it is no coincidence that the first delegation to linger outside your chamber seeks your counsel on ceremonial arrangements, from the seating order of envoys to the sequence of gift exchanges. No longer the country girl dreaming of a fleeting romantic moment, you have become an indispensable linchpin, an unofficial director of court protocol. When Henry wonders whether to include an additional choral interlude or a dance tableau in the evening's festivities, he turns to you as he would to a learned advisor. When diplomatic aides falter over the multicultural etiquettes required for a visiting Flemish prince, They too seek your insight into human nature and diplomatic tact. Even your relationship with Anne Boleyn has deepened from colleague to confidant. In the hush of a fireside chamber, Anne shares the inner turmoil of her ambition to become queen rather than merely a consort, a risky path tempered by unwavering resolve. Your empathetic ear and deft suggestions encouraging her to strengthen ties with the Duke of Norfolk here, advising her to project the grace of a noblewoman there, have steadied her resolve and assured Henry of her steadiness. You are no longer a royal beauty, nor a temporary love interest. You are a pillar, ensuring the smooth operation of courtly relationships, a facilitator of diplomatic encounters, a bridge between personal desire and national duty. And the most remarkable part? This future was not the one you first imagined upon arriving at Greenwich, but it has proven infinitely more fulfilling, a life woven from beauty, power, and intellect, where you do not merely adorn the court, but help shape its history. But the most significant advance has been the court's unanimous recognition that you have mastered the art of preserving your influence and personal security, while gracefully accepting the natural evolution of royal affections. Rather than becoming a cautionary tale about the perils of rising too swiftly, you have demonstrated that intelligence, adaptability, and compassion can transform a fleeting romantic favour into enduring political relevance. Imagine Westminster Hall in its solemn grandeur, stone vaults gleaming under candlelight, ceilings spanning centuries of power struggles, and the echo of courtiers' footsteps as they seek to shape the destiny of a kingdom. Within these history-steeped walls, you have assumed a new role, not merely the king's consort, but an unofficial counsellor on matters of paramount importance. Thomas Wolsey, King Henry's most powerful minister, began summoning you to closed-door sessions to discuss the legal and diplomatic ramifications of annulling the king's marriage to Catherine of Aragon. His keen gaze sought more than ecclesiastical precedent. He wanted to understand Henry's psychology and Anne Boleyn's unyielding demands. Drawing upon the knowledge you cultivated in private studies under the Duchess of Norfolk, you delivered incisive analyses, from drafting petitions to the Pope to orchestrating discreet negotiations with European peers. You guided Wolsey step by step toward a strategy capable of persuading Rome without alienating vital allies. Around you, dukes, earls, and ambassadors came to realize that, despite your modest origins, you possessed the capacity to dissect unprecedented scenarios, ranging from doctrinal questions of divorce to trade interests and military alliances. Through careful prudence and genuine goodwill, you not only reinforced Henry's confidence in you, but also diffused tensions whenever disputes arose between the king and Anne. Each time friction flared, you were the one to step in with tactful proposals that ensured both could win. Henry safeguarding his broader policy agenda, and Anne preserving her personal ambitions. Yet this burgeoning political stature is a double-edged sword. Invitations from high-ranking officials come with the weight of consequential decisions. What if the king changes his mind? Or if Anne achieves her goals first? The trust you have amassed is not immutable, and maintaining it demands resolve and foresight. This final lesson is clear. True influence lies in the skillful balance between serving the crown and safeguarding your own position, between speaking truth and preserving discretion, ensuring you are neither swept away by the current of power nor deprived of the precious station you have so carefully built. In the past few weeks, the grand halls and sumptuous gardens around Greenwich have echoed with whispers from the nobility. Many illustrious houses have approached you with marriage proposals laden with both promise and peril. Some offers came from the youngest sons of powerful dukes, willing to forego certain privileges to gain from your royal connections. Others were from widowed barons, their grief just abated, and yearning for a partner savvy enough to navigate intricate political alliances. Each overture carried calculations of status, interest, and influence, reminding you that life beyond the palace is as dazzling as it is demanding. Beneath the warm glow of lantern light in your dressing chamber, Elizabeth Stafford, the Duchess of Norfolk, seated herself beside you, guiding your analysis of each proposition. She reminded you that your choice would shape not only personal happiness, but also determine whether you could preserve your role as a sought-after advisor to the court. Her probing questions cut to the core. Do their family connections bolster the crown's initiatives? Will you be drawn into hidden intrigues? Will their estates grant freedom, or will you be bound by their unspoken alliances? After many such deliberations, Gilbert Taleboys emerged as the most compelling candidate. He, a widower in his early 30s, owned vast manors in the fertile plains of Lincolnshire, where golden wheat fields stretched to the horizon. His ample income ensured an indulgent lifestyle without reliance on court favour, and crucially, he harboured no grand political ambitions that might conflict with your loyalty to Henry and Anne. What set Gilbert apart was his humility and genuine respect for an educated woman's intellect. Over tea on wooden verandas, he spoke of his desire to hear your thoughts on culture, art, and charitable endeavours you deeply understood. His warm voice felt like an invitation to a long-term partnership founded on mutual esteem. The vision of your future with Gilbert unfolded like a painting blending classic and contemporary strokes. You would preside over an elegant country home, with English roses and towering yews in the gardens, yet still travel to London for clandestine palace gatherings. Your freedom of thought and access to royal discourse would remain intact, while your network from East Anglian peers to affluent merchants in the capital would flourish further. When news of Gilbert's proposal reached Henry, the king's response astonished many. Instead of expressing disappointment or jealousy, he voiced admiration. Henry called it a wise decision, affirming that your choice of a steadfast ally outside the court would strengthen both the royal family and your circle of confidants. "I want those I trust to be well placed," he said, "and Gilbert merits that trust." However, with Henry's blessing, Gilbert's offer ceased to be a mere invitation. It became a seal of approval, ushering in a new chapter where you would not merely be the favoured, but the lady of an independent household, still intimately connected to the court, yet afforded dignity and security more enduring than ever before. Those intimate talks with Gilbert about your future were more than mere excitement. They offered Henry a chance to express his profound gratitude toward you, the steadfast companion who had weathered the court's fiercest storms. As candlelight danced along the vaulted ceiling of the royal chamber, the king lifted his gaze to you with fondness, speaking of your discretion in safeguarding his private worries. From the burdens of heavy taxation disputes to his deepest doubts about church reform, he lauded your wisdom in smoothing strained relations from the scheming prince to the enraged courtiers, and thanked you for your genuine heart that always placed his honour and happiness above any selfish gain. The conversation flowed like a duet of kindred spirits. Gilbert listened quietly, gently clasping your hand for reassurance. Henry nodded in agreement, each word of praise etched in his eyes. A silent servant set down a cup of rose-infused tea on the table, morning light filtering through rose-tinted stained glass, illuminating your jade-green silk gown, as if heralding your transformation from a rustic maiden into England's most revered counsellor. Yet most importantly, in those moments you realized how you had grown in both intellect and subtlety. The girl, once anxious only about the perfection of her embroidery, now stood as the figure whose judgment monarchs sought, entrusted with the court's most sensitive secrets as if they were precious treasures. That evolution was not simply personal triumph, but a victory of reason and courage over the constraints once imposed by birth and gender. When Henry warmly blessed your engagement to Gilbert, you felt the end of an uncertain chapter, and the beginning of a new one, eager rather than resigned. Marriage promised security and independence, but it also opened fresh opportunities for you to continue steering relationships and applying your profound knowledge to greater causes beyond mere personal advancement. Your proudest achievement was clear. You had transformed a fleeting royal romance into enduring influence, genuine friendship, and a platform of safety, allowing you to chart your own future, free from the whims of any powerful figure. It was no fairy tale ending, but a tangible success, laying the foundation for lasting happiness and meaningful contributions far beyond the golden gates of the court. Then, on a pristine morning in mid-May, when the pear blossoms bloomed along the arched entrance of the Taleboys' Lincolnshire chapel, you donned your splendid ivory lace gown, marking your complete metamorphosis. Gilbert awaited you at the threshold with a gentle smile, and just behind him, the herald's blade signalled Henry's arrival. The king entered the nave with dignified grace yet unmistakable warmth, signalling not a farewell to court life, but a graduation into a new, safer form of influence, one that was more fulfilling than ever before. His presence at the ceremony was both a blessing and a public affirmation of your enduring significance within England's intricate web of influence. The ancient chapel, crafted from pale limestone and supported by sturdy Romanesque columns, boasted perfect symmetry in every detail, from the crystal chandeliers hanging overhead to the bas-reliefs depicting angels in flight. Candlelight cast a warm glow, reflecting softly off the high vaults, making the space feel both sacred and intimate, as though embracing every soul present. Surrounding you were the Taleboys' family graves, engraved with the names of ancestors who had lived and fought for this land for centuries. Intricately carved stone statues of knights in armor stood vigil, a testament to the family's enduring legacy. Gentle strains of lute and harp music mingled with the priest's prayers, creating a harmonious blend of history and the present moment. As you entered, your soft steps on the red-carpeted aisle embroidered by hand with motifs of hope and dream echoed your journey from rustic fields to the splendor of the court. Your wedding gown, in a delicate cream hue interwoven with threads of gold, was spun from gossamer silk. The bodice hugged your waist, adorned with lace patterns inspired by royal floral motifs, highlighting your feminine curves while preserving an air of modest elegance. Layers of diaphanous veil draped over your shoulders like morning mist, evoking a dreamy yet dignified presence that befit a country bride entering a grand court. Handcrafted satin shoes from London bore your footprints lightly upon the cool stone floor, marking each step from pastoral simplicity to regal grandeur. When the priest lifted his head, his gaze rested on you, solemn yet joyful, and the ring exchange began. You gently offered your hand to Gilbert, who knelt respectfully to slide a white gold band, engraved with swirling vines, onto your fourth finger. A church bell tolled solemnly, its resonance a reminder of love and duty, echoing beneath the vaults as if sealing your vows into the heavens themselves. As you placed the ring on Gilbert's finger, his eyes shone with delight. With my heart laid bare, I pledge to cherish, protect, and stand by you all my days. His warm voice filled the hushed chapel, every word steeped in profound sincerity. When it was your turn, your vow rang clear. I choose you as my companion through joy and trial, in calm and storm. King Henry's reaction made the moment even more majestic. He offered a gentle smile, his eyes glistening with genuine happiness for you. His regal silhouette embodied a trusted friend rather than a distant monarch. When he laid a small gift, a box of French pearls, on the altar beside you as his witness, the chapel resonated with a hymn of peace and hope. The ensuing wedding feast unfolded in the grand manor hall, long tables set under shimmering lights. Guests raised their ancient vintages in celebration of your new life. Laughter mingled with clinking glasses and warm conversation as you and Gilbert shared your first dance under a canopy of goodwill. In that moment, any anxieties from your earliest days at court had faded, replaced by the steadfast belief that you had charted your own path, a life both protected and overflowing with love, where you would forever be cherished not only for your beauty, but for your intellect, character, and open heart. Gilbert's friends and neighbours welcomed you with open hearts and genuine smiles, free of the calculated formality typical of courtly gatherings. The scene at the Lincolnshire estate brimmed with rustic charm, rows of ancient holly trees lining the entrance, a butterfly garden ablaze with colours beside the farmhouse, and endless fields of golden barley swaying in the breeze. Tables were set outdoors on the lawn, draped in simple white linen, laden with homemade treats, freshly baked scones, deep purple plum preserves, soft goat cheese, and jugs of lightly effervescent apple cider. Conversations among your new companions flowed like the countryside wind, cheerful and unhurried, effortlessly shifting from tales of the harvest season to Gilbert's first horseback ride, and onto secrets for growing the region's sweetest melons. No one here pondered hidden meanings or power plays. For that moment, you were simply the bride of a tranquil land, embraced by all. What truly awakened a childlike delight in you was the laughter of the children, Gilbert's cousins, and the neighbours' youngsters as they darted among tables, peeled chestnut shells, and cheered at finding a treasure, a spiral shell, or a glinting pebble. In that warm atmosphere, you caught glimpses of a carefree joy you had nearly forgotten amid courtly anxieties. As the feast turned to its formal highlight, Henry VIII rose from his seat on the flower-strewn lawn. Attired in a deep wine velvet gown trimmed with pristine ermine and a plume-adorned cap, his rich voice filled the evening air. I thank the noble Taleboys family for welcoming Elizabeth as their own. Her wisdom, loyalty, and intellect have served me and the realm as both friend and steadfast counsellor. Today, I entrust her to Gilbert's care, a man worthy of her love and respect. May your life together be as joyful and enduring as a springtime that never ends. As Applause rippled across the lawn, the barley heads bowing gently as if in celebration. Then Anne Boleyn, in her sleek emerald gown, stepped forward and took your hand. Her eyes glistened. "Elizabeth, you have been my unwavering anchor through storms at court. Your kindness and counsel guided me through many long nights of doubt. Today, seeing you so happy with Gilbert brings me profound peace. Thank you, from the depths of my heart. Emb." As the sunset bathed the red-tiled roofs and oaks in golden hues, the gathering transformed into a village fete. A violin began a folk melody, and everyone joined hands in a joyful circle dance, laughter mingling with the evening breeze. Gone were the courtly protocols, and royal dignitaries only sincere friendship, and the pure delight of country life remained. And in that moment, you knew you had found a second home, where the heart could roam free, and happiness was shared wholeheartedly. Your final private conversation with Henry before departing for married life took place in a cosy private chamber in the western wing of Greenwich Palace. The walls were hung with handcrafted tapestries depicting royal hunts, and candlelight danced over intricately carved oak panelling. On an aged oak table stood 2 steaming mugs of spiced apple wine. Henry stood by the window, fingertips brushing a sapphire velvet drape as he gazed out over the moonlit Thames. "Elizabeth," his voice was deep and warm, "throughout these months you have been my keen eyes and steadfast heart. When I faced the most weighty decisions, diplomatic crises, tax reforms, or the church's delicate matters, your counsel illuminated my path." He turned to you, eyes brimming with genuine gratitude. "I confess that your wisdom and moderation have shaped the success of my reign. Though your title soon changes, your importance in my life endures." You bowed your head, touched by emotion. He stepped forward, placing a small leather-bound notebook in your hands, an invitation to continue corresponding. "Stay in touch with me and with Anne." He smiled, his expression conveying promise. "Your perspective, knowing our characters deeply, coupled with the freedom of a secure marriage, will be invaluable as Anne and I confront unprecedented challenges." His tone grew solemn yet tender. "Your role now transcends royal mistress. You are my trusted ally, a strategic companion. Your loyalty and understanding remain treasures of this realm." The farewell grew even more poignant when Gilbert appeared. He draped an arm around you, his gaze steady. "You've chosen your path well," he whispered. "I'm proud that you've captured the king's heart while preserving your honor and independence. You exemplify wisdom above all ceremony." As you left the palace, moonlight shimmered along the cobbled path, each stone a reminder of sweet and bitter memories. Your journey carried you through sweeping fields under a starlit sky, where tall grasses swayed, and fireflies glowed in the cool breeze. The clip-clop of hooves echoed, each step forward unlocking a world of new possibilities. A home alive with children's laughter, a garden fragrant with roses, and serene evenings by a humble hearth. Beside you, Gilbert shared family lore, carefully preserved letters from ancestors, tales of a grandfather who brokered peace with neighbouring villages. He listened as you spoke of your reflections from the opulent court, the candlelit corridors, the whispered confidences. Amidst the rustling leaves, you felt this new life was not simply an ending, but the dawn of a bright chapter, where your friendship, intellect, and courage would continue to shine, not only under a king's gaze, but in the hearts of a family and a kingdom in flux. Your first glimpse of Taleboys Manor took your breath away. A warm, elegant limestone residence embraced by rose gardens, ivy-clad walls, and towering ancient oaks in their autumn finery. A cobblestone path led to an ornate iron gate etched with acanthus leaves, opening onto a gently rolling lawn. Golden daffodils lined the walkway, their sweet scent heralding the coming spring. In the distance, grapevines bore the promise of plump clusters destined for the family's renowned vintage. You ascended marble steps worn by time to a grand oak door carved with the Taleboys' crest. Inside, a corridor of emerald-tiled flooring displayed ancestral portraits, each noble figure exuding confidence and pride. Sunlight filtered through stained-glass panes, casting a warm glow that seemed to welcome you home. A tinkling wind chime sang softly overhead. Gilbert awaited you at the corridor's end, clad in a charcoal wool morning suit that complemented his copper-hued hair. His gentle smile and sincere gaze drew you forward. "Welcome home," he murmured, his voice as rich as aged wine. He led you into the sitting room, where sapphire velvet armchairs circled a white stone hearth, and shelves brimmed with leather-bound volumes of poetry, history, and traditional herbal lore. Your eyes widened at the ornate Lincolnshire map hanging on the wall, its delicate lines detailing rivers, marshlands, and endless pine forests. Gilbert traced his fingertip across golden fields of wheat that gleamed in the dawn, promising tomorrow's strolls to plan orchards, beehives humming with honey, and literary salons for distinguished guests. The scent of oak mingled with cinnamon and dried orange peel, creating an atmosphere of comforting familiarity. Next came the sunlit dining hall, its carved wooden ceiling beams entwined with flourishes of acanthus leaves. A grand mahogany table stood at its heart, set with fine gilded ceramics and sparkling crystal goblets. Through the windows, you spied a tranquil koi pond in the garden, beyond iridescent fish gliding beneath sunlit water lilies, while red dragonflies danced overhead, the clip-clop of a distant cart adding a rustic cadence. Gilbert invited you to an afternoon tea in a storybook garden, wicker chairs tucked beneath a canopy of fragrant wisteria, a small table laid with honey-glazed biscuits and fresh cream prepared by the manor's devoted cook. Seated beside him, you felt the warmth of his hand in yours. The setting sun gilded the red-tiled roofs and filtered through leaves, scattering golden motes across the tabletop. You realized Taleboys Manor was more than a house. It was the domain of heart and mind combined. Here, you would cultivate family joy while upholding the ideals of fairness, scholarship, and compassion honed during your time in the royal court. You would teach future generations prayers, mathematics, and Shakespeare, and host moonlit concerts for the village. Under the violet dusk sky, you understood that, having left behind the dazzling dangers of court life, you now belonged to a home that offered not only warmth, but profound purpose, where personal happiness intertwined eternally with service to others. This was the beginning of a new chapter, where private bliss and public idealism would blossom side by side. 5 years later, you sit in the cozy drawing room of Taleboys Manor, where the late afternoon sun streams through oak-framed windows, casting a gentle gold upon the intricate Persian rug. Seated on a cobalt velvet armchair, you cradle a cup of lavender-infused tea, your gaze drifting to your youngest daughter, peacefully slumbering in the ornately carved beechwood cradle, Gilbert lovingly crafted. The steady tick of the grandfather clock harmonizes with the rustle of maple leaves outside, composing a serene nocturne after so many years of upheaval. On the adjacent side table lies an envelope bearing Queen Anne's crimson wax seal, a poignant reminder of your shared journey from palace pages to lifelong friends. Unfolding the parchment, you read the flowing script of your childhood confidant, now monarch. Warm congratulations on your daughter's birth. Vivid descriptions of Anne's coronation jewelled with pearls and rubies. Invitations to a Venetian concert in Westminster. And subtle reports of famine stirring unrest in the Midlands. Lowering the letter, your eyes linger on your daughter's cherubic face, her name Hope curving like a promise on her tiny lips. Life in Lincolnshire has blossomed beyond any dream you held when you first accepted Gilbert's hand. Dawnbreak rides through dew-kissed fields, evenings huddled around the hearth reading Grimm's fairy tales to your two little ones, the kitchen alive with the scent of freshly baked apple tarts. The famed rose garden bursts each summer in crimson and pink, and the pebbled courtyard stands ready for elegant outdoor feasts. Gilbert, now more husband than youthful suitor, has proven himself your partner in every venture. He walks beside you in designing new wheat fields, supporting your vision for a private library threaded with religious texts and Renaissance poetry. Your marriage thrives on mutual respect and trust, passionate enough to kindle warmth, steadfast enough to weather political storms. Correspondence with Henry and Queen Anne threads through the tumult of England's recent reforms, from church schism to fraught diplomacy with France. You serve as an unofficial counsellor, advising on episcopal appointments, assessing new treaties, and collaborating with Anne on compassionate policies for Midland farmers. Your unique perspective as one who truly understands royal temperament, yet enjoys marital independence, has earned you unprecedented esteem at court. As dusk deepens, you cradle your daughter in your arms, her warmth as delicate as an early blooming plum blossom, A solitary nightingale drifts through the window, heralding twilight. You smile, reflecting that your path has carried you from a seamstress in Tudor silks to a role infinite in joy and responsibility. A mother, a wife, a trusted advisor, and above all, a woman who has artfully shaped enduring happiness through intellect, affection, and courage. Anne's letter arrived this morning bearing news that filled you with both awe at her extraordinary triumph and concern for the precarious position she now occupies. Seated upon the throne of England, her crown rests heavy with burdens. From the bold decree to sever ties with Roman authority, to the founding of an independent English church, and the political isolation that follows once she no longer leans on any foreign power. Each dawn, Anne faces covert opposition, plots by pro-Roman factions whispering doubts about the legitimacy of her reign. My dearest Elizabeth, the letter begins, the dark brown ink crisp on aged parchment. Our greatest victory has come to pass. Yet I find myself seeking your counsel in moments when courage feels too frail. Henry and I have accomplished what once seemed impossible, securing religious and political autonomy for England. The Roman Church can no longer condemn us, and Parliament has enacted new laws cementing our authority across all shires. Yet Anne's words betray her anxiety. The peace I envisioned with my first pregnancy, a prince to secure our dynasty, has become a stage for relentless drama. Instead of joy, I bear the weight of Europe's expectations to produce a male heir to validate our upheaval. Every whisper of court rumour, every suspicious glance turns to my womb, and any political gust can swell into a tempest. In your study at Taleboys Manor, by flickering candlelight over the oak desk strewn with her letter, you ponder. Memories flood back of your own departure from court to wed Gilbert. The lavish banquets, the awed gazes that soon grew distant, and the tranquil garden you now share, where your two children play untroubled by thrones or power. That journey taught you to comprehend Anne's predicament. Lasting happiness lies beyond the fleeting lustre of a throne. With deliberate strokes, you compose your reply, urging Anne to draw on her inner fortitude and to cultivate alliances with England's most steadfast nobles, such as the reform-minded clergy of the North, to forge a resilient coalition, albeit small. You propose she host intimate liturgies, inviting influential English ladies to transform the English church into a welcoming fellowship rather than an embattled fortress. You recall Gilbert's wisdom. Safety is not merely the throne beneath you, but the knowledge that you are cherished for who you are, not for the power you wield. At the letter's close, you include a sprig of dried rose petals from your garden, a gentle talisman for the long nights ahead. Although you carefully avoid suggesting Anne should alter her extraordinary path, the most profound passage of your letter directly addresses her anxiety over whether Henry's devotion can endure now that he has formally wed her. You begin this section by describing a sunset at Greenwich, lanterns flickering through carved wooden grills, and catching Henry's gaze not as a monarch admiring beauty, but as a devoted husband looking on with genuine warmth. You go on to explain that the most durable foundation for lasting loyalty is not feasts or courtly splendor, but mutual respect and intellectual partnership. You recount the correspondence between Anne and Henry since her coronation letters centered on the legal battles before Rome, the delicate calculus of diplomacy with France and Spain, rather than flowery declarations of affection. Through these rich, thoughtful exchanges, Henry has come to see that his bond with Anne is not merely a personal romance, but a partnership shaping the fate of a nation. You emphasize, a passion only thrives when it is fueled by intellectual engagement and a sustained concern for shared purpose. When you posed incisive questions about church reform, he did not reply simply as a ruler, but as a man seeking deep understanding. You recall the moment Henry sent Anne the draft bill for the Anglican Reformation, and how her insightful amendment clarified the most complex clauses, earning his admiration and cementing their collaborative spirit. Your letter does not neglect counsel on nurturing private life with family, for therein lies irreplaceable solace. You paint a tranquil picture of Taleboys Manor mornings when Anne strolls through the rose garden with her little princesses, afternoons hosting noblewomen in the fireside parlours, debating poetry and philosophy. In these serene intervals, Henry finds the calm and renewal needed to weather courtly storms. In closing, you encourage Anne to remain true to herself. The key to sustaining his devotion is not striving to be a flawless portrait, but continuing to be the partner-wife, friend, and ally he chose to steer a transforming kingdom together. You gift her a silk scarf embroidered with 7-petaled plum blossoms, a symbol of endurance through adversity, reminding her that love and power, when rooted in wisdom and goodwill, will never fade. Through today's video, we not only immerse ourselves in the captivating story of Elizabeth Blount under the reign of Henry VIII, but we also glean invaluable lessons on how to build and preserve personal influence, the power of intellect, and the art of tact in any environment, from the opulent Tudor court banquets to the modern office setting. The central message is this: true worth does not lie in power or fleeting beauty, but in the ability to connect, understand, and respect one another, in knowing how to use wisdom to transform relationships into a lasting foundation for long-term success. In our contemporary lives, this means that whether you are a leader or a teammate, listening attentively, sharing ideas openly, and maintaining humility will help you earn trust and wield positive influence with colleagues, partners, or clients. Moreover, the video underscores the importance of lifelong learning and agile adaptation to change qualities Elizabeth used to transform herself from a country girl into a royal favourite, skillfully navigating the treacherous political ecosystem. These are timeless values that apply in every context, from personal branding and career development to balancing work with family life. Finally, good night to those of you still awake. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our newest and best videos.